In Naruto, the traveling frog brought back the brilliant fruit. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 51 Pain feels threatened. After hearing these words, the scarred man in the lead laughed out loud, and even laughed to tears. Brothers, I heard it right. This guy actually wants us to leave, and he wants to let us go. I'm really grateful to him. I'm so scared. The people around also laughed out loud. Although they are cautious in their bones, they don't mind laughing wildly when the gap between the enemy and us is so obvious that it is insurmountable. The man snorted coldly. Don't think that you can fight us just by killing a dozen or 20 genin. The gap between us and those guys is different. Takashi didn't say anything. He attached a layer of golden armor to his body, shining golden light in this dark forest. This is a move he created recently, the light energy armor. It can refract most light. The strong light will make the opponent unable to open his eyes. In the battle, a momentary mistake may ruin his life. Takashi turned the Sharingan sword into a spear. He had used the Sharingan sword many times, but he always felt that it was not very smooth. It was not until he turned the sword into a spear that he felt much more comfortable. In his mind, he still believed in the saying that an inch longer is an inch stronger. He could attack and stretch the spear freely, which could be said to be both offensive and defensive. According to his hunting habits, he likes to go from weak to strong. He doesn't want to be stabbed in the back by some trash. He once again rushed into the enemy camp, and this time, he had shown his true ability, watching his companions die tragically in his hands one after another, and even some Chunin didn't even have the power to resist, and were directly knocked down and turned into pieces. Not long after, there were only a dozen Jonin left on the field, but everyone was still injured. Their eyes were full of disbelief, looking at this guy, as if they had seen a ghost. The scarred man had the lightest injuries, but his eyes were also the most horrified, because he had the honor of seeing the first generation of Konoha Flash, Namake's Minato. After he saw Takashi, he awakened his deepest memory that had been sealed for many years. Konoha Flash, surrender will not be killed, right? After saying this, Takashi was stunned and suddenly remembered the previous Namake's Minato. It seemed that there were some strange rules. Even after seeing Namake's Minato, you would not be punished if you gave up the mission directly. He thought about it carefully, and it seemed that this was not bad. In this way, he would save a lot of trouble and would not have so much blood on his hands. He simply agreed directly. That's right. Then do you want to surrender or continue to fight with me? Several Jonin looked at each other and threw down all the weapons in their hands. No matter how good the money is, you have to live to earn it. The reason why they became rebel ninjas and mercenaries is because they are greedy for life and afraid of death. Now there is a chance to live. How can they not cherish it? Others have never seen Namake's Minato and don't know the feeling of being dominated by fear. At this moment, the aunt's legs are a little weak, and she walks slowly, stopping not far away. It seems that Takashi's eyes have changed. He knew very well that this guy was not the original Minato Namake's, but he was stronger than the previous Minato Namake's, and his moves were more ruthless and cruel. He could see the sadness flashing in Takashi's eyes, but under that, his moves were more steady, accurate, and ruthless. What a terrible man he was, who could completely restrain and balance his own will and pursuit. A self-deprecating smile. It seems that I will never accept any missions from Konoha in the future. After all, the scarred man was the leader of this group. There was no choice but to return to the hidden rain village again. It rained all year round in this place. Nagato felt it when he took the first step. He came to the hidden place, half knelt on the ground, and looked up at Nagato. This mission failed. Konoha has a new talented ninja who swept our entire team alone. He was incredibly fast and had a golden flash. He looked very much like the fourth Hokage Minato Namake's whom I met before, but he is even stronger and more ruthless. You can only ask someone else for this mission. Nagato didn't say anything, but just sighed. He came to find these guys by himself, but he still couldn't complete the mission. The undercover he sent to Konoha has been doing it for 2 years, and he didn't know how much intelligence he would bring. It was like opening a blind box. But at the most critical moment, his own ninja was intercepted, and he spent a lot of money to ask for rescue, but it all failed. If it weren't for the fact that all these people in his family had their own missions, there would be no need for these mercenaries to take action. Nagato didn't say anything. The scarred man also stood up and walked out silently. Xiaonan threw countless pieces of paper through his neck. In an instant, the man's head fell off. Then Xiaonan wrapped it up in paper and took it out. The whole process was done in one go, without any drag. It was obvious that he was a veteran. But Nagato was also a little puzzled. Konoha Flash, what kind of ninja is this? And his talent is stronger than that of the 4th Hokage. What kind of exaggerated person is this? If he follows his plan, in a few years, won't there be another generation of Hokage level strongmen, or even surpass them? That will bring a huge obstacle to his mission of capturing the Nine Tails. This kind of thing must not happen. It seems that their plan has to be advanced. Xiaonan came back, after dealing with the body, looked at Nagato gently, and asked softly, "Do we need to send more people to lurk in Konoha? We still have some people to choose from." But Nagato shook his head helplessly. "Forget it. After this incident, Konoha will definitely be more vigilant against us. It's not easy to train ninjas. We should not waste them there. We should carry out the task of recovering the tailed beasts in advance." But at this time, Xiaonan frowned. Should we inform others about this matter in advance? Besides, the three-tail has not been recondensed yet. The other people mentioned here, Xiaonan was referring to Obito, but she didn't point it out directly. She was afraid that it would make Nagato uncomfortable. Nagato thought so inside. The three-tail is indeed a problem. Let's capture other tailed beasts first, and see if we can use their chakra to forcibly splice it out. The chakra of the tailed beasts should be common. After all, they all came from one individual. If they can be condensed in advance, we can capture them directly. Xiaonan asked again. Who is the first tailed beast we should capture? Nagato's eyes became cold. He thought carefully, and seemed to have made up his mind. Start with the Sand Village. Chapter 52, Misunderstanding Yakumo. After Takashi returned to Konoha village, he came to the Hokage's office the next day. He didn't expect Tsunade and Kunoichi were there. Takashi looked at them, and didn't know whether to say anything or not. The third generation gave them a look, and they went out very tactfully, and then looked at Takashi with a serious face. How did the matter go? Takashi scratched his head. People are dead. There are about 100 people who came to rescue, and there are more than a dozen Jonin. Basically, I killed almost all of them, but some people couldn't be stopped, but there were not many left. The third generation Hokage showed a trace of surprise in his eyes. He didn't expect that the number of people had exceeded his prediction, and what was even more surprising was that Takashi's growth was so fast that he could kill 7 in and 7 out of such a large crowd. The most important thing was that he saw that Takashi didn't have any scars on his body and nodded without showing any emotion on his face. You did a good job this time. Go and collect the reward for this mission. Takashi turned around and went out directly. The income this time was very generous, but the third generation Hokage called him directly. Didn't you hear them say something strange? Takashi shook his head, but the third Hokage continued to ask. Aren't you curious about who has such armed forces? But Takashi's answer made him laugh and cry. It's none of my business, and I don't get paid. Then he opened the door and went out. As soon as he went out, he actually ran into Yakumo, and it seemed that she was also a frequent visitor here, often strolling here. I'm afraid that the third Hokage also knew how powerful this little girl was, and they didn't dare to restrict her personal freedom, mainly because she was a child. When Yakumo saw Takashi, her face changed immediately, and she turned from a sickly girl into a lively girl. When Takashi saw this guy, he was also a little helpless. He would rather charge into the army of hundreds of ninjas than meet this little girl. The key is that he really has no way to deal with it. He can't beat her or scold her, so he can only go along. When did Miss Yakumo bring you here? Yakumo asked Takashi to squat down, then climbed onto his shoulders very skillfully, and then said confidently, I'm tired, you carry me. He had no choice but to carry Yakumo on his back. The little girl didn't have much flesh on her body, and it was not comfortable to carry her on his back. He walked all the way to the steps and heard Tsunade talking to Kunoe. Yakumo's face changed immediately and gestured to Takashi to hide quickly. She usually couldn't hear how Kunoe evaluated her, and this time she finally got to hear it, and she didn't want to be exposed like this. So Takashi hid aside with a crying face. People passing by thought it was very strange. He is now a frequent visitor here and a famous curler, but the girl he carried on his back didn't dare to speak. Afterwards, they only heard Kunoe complaining quietly. Yakumo's mood has become more and more unstable recently. I'm even a little afraid that he will lose control and cause huge damage to Konoha. What should I do now? I can't disappoint the Hokage's expectations, but I don't want to disappoint that child either. Tsunade didn't have so many sentimental feelings. She had seen too many separations and deaths. Then she gently touched her neck with her hand. Anyone who saw this situation would misunderstand it. However, Kunoe didn't deny it, but just sighed silently, as if she agreed. Then she said slowly, "How can I do this? That child is the same as my sister." Takashi looked back at Yakumo on his body. He saw that the little girl's eyes and pupils were constantly shaking. He didn't know which step she heard. If she was interrupted at the critical moment, it would be a mess. However, he looked at Yakumo's appearance. If nothing unexpected happened, it would probably be an accident. She probably saw that Kunoe didn't deny the answer and didn't listen to the rest of the words at all. This caused such a huge mental blow to her. Takashi was so angry that he usually walked very quietly. Unless you listened very carefully, you would not notice it. If he did not let this little girl be so willful, Tsunade and the others would definitely notice it with their strength, and there would be no need to cause such a big trouble. He hurriedly called out softly, "Yakumo, little beauty, Yakumo, big beauty, Kirumi Yakumo, wake up, don't scare me." Then he saw the little girl's eyes gradually lost their light. Then a strange space actually enveloped the entire Hokage building. Takashi was so scared that he almost threw the little girl down, but he still resisted the impulse of fear. This thing is similar to illusion, but not very similar to illusion. To be precise, it should be an illusion. When Tsunade and the others noticed this place, it was already too late, especially Kunoe. When she saw Yakumo, she exclaimed, "Yakumo, why are you here? Takashi, what are you doing?" Takashi could only smile bitterly. "As you can see, I'm carrying Yakumo on my back, but now, what I'm carrying on my back is just a shell." The real Yakumo seems to have lost control. Then he looked at the surrounding environment. This illusion was like an onion, divided into several layers. If he couldn't reach the deepest part and rescue him, I'm afraid everyone in the building would suffer. And gradually, Yakumo behind him slowly disappeared and began to disintegrate into a piece. After seeing this scene, he was stunned. What was going on? Then, the whole illusion began to vibrate constantly, and this vibration made him feel very uneasy. He didn't dare to delay any longer, and didn't explain to others what he turned into light energy particles, and began to shuttle continuously throughout the building, not letting go of any corner, but found nothing. He believed in his ability to find, so he searched twice more, and made sure that there was nothing. Then he locked his eyes on the roof. Only that place he hadn't explored. He directly summoned a light gun to break the roof and jumped up, and after going up, he found a vortex that was constantly rotating on it. Takashi didn't even think about it and jumped in. He didn't believe Yakumo could hurt him, and more importantly, he was confident in his ability. This is what is called a master is brave. When he entered the room, he found that there was a room similar to a crystal. Yakumo was in it, holding a paintbrush and constantly painting. There were several portraits beside him, including Takashi. Not only that, but also Kunoe, the third generation Hokage and other Konoha high-level officials. He took a deep breath. He couldn't bear that he didn't let Kaguya, Uchiha Madara and other masters beat him to death, but died in the hands of this little girl, so he walked over resolutely. Chapter 53, Conquering the Monster. A terrifying breath. Yakumo seemed to hear someone coming towards her. She turned around and saw that it was Takashi. A hint of joy appeared on her face, which was full of sorrow and indifference, but it quickly disappeared. What are you doing here? I'm just a guy who is hated by everyone. Even my closest people want to kill me. Takashi felt a headache when he heard this. Sure enough, he was interrupted at the most critical moment, and he didn't hear what Yuhikyo said at all. At this time, he found that above him, a terrible demon gradually condensed. He had brown skin, a flat head and a big mouth, and countless teeth were distributed on it. There was also a touch of evil on the big mouth. This guy was the illusion evil spirit mentioned earlier. He didn't want to devour other people, but wanted to devour his master Kurama. Yakumo didn't know what was happening outside, and he didn't know that he was about to destroy the central organization of Konoha. Takashi couldn't pass through the crystal structure, but he could reflect his own shadow in it through the reflection of light. Yakumo, who was painting seriously, was stunned when he saw Takashi's figure appearing beside him. Turning around, he saw Takashi saying something to him anxiously, but he couldn't hear any sound. Yakumo picked up the paintbrush and rubbed the indestructible crystal on the space. A picture frame appeared. Yakumo poked his head out of it, but there was a shadow on his face. What do you want to do? I will never get out of here. You are all a bunch of liars. A bunch of liars who will never care about me and even want to kill me. Takashi now stabilized his emotions first. Only by stabilizing his emotions could he continue to persuade the ignorant little girl in front of him. He now hated himself for not inventing the tape recorder. Otherwise, it would save a lot of effort. But even so, he could only persuade. Yakumo, listen to my explanation. What you just heard was just a misunderstanding. You completely misunderstood teacher Yuhikyo. He had no intention of hurting you at all. He even rejected this suggestion righteously. He cares about you very much. So you must not hurt the person you care about most because of this misunderstanding. But at this moment, Yakumo's mentality was somewhat broken. It was obvious that he did not believe what Takashi said at this moment. The space began to vibrate continuously again. Get out. I don't want to hurt you, and I don't want to see you. Takashi was actually teleported out of here directly. Then he saw the general scene around him, and he knew that the situation had not been resolved at all. He used his speed to search again. Since the scene was not resolved, the entrance must be nearby. Sure enough, he found it again in a very secret corner, but Takashi was teleported out again without any surprise. Once, twice, he felt that the vibration of the surrounding space was getting stronger and stronger. He had no choice but to combine his speed. When he came in for an unknown number of times, he stopped Yakumo directly. Wait a minute, you have teleported me out many times. You may not know, because of your current state, the entire Konoha village may be destroyed by you. Do you want to personally kill all the people you have met and treated you well? Takashi originally did not want to say such a relatively cruel word, but if he did not say it now, he was afraid that he would not have the chance to say it in the future. Sure enough, after saying this, Yakumo's expression changed a little, and he began to become a little hesitant. Takashi saw that his words had an effect, and continued to pursue the victory. I know that your nature is not bad, but you can't use your ability. Don't let your terrible ability control you. You have to be the master of the ability. If you are willing to believe me again, I'm also a helpless person. If you believe me, I will be your brother and you will be my sister. With me here, no one can bully you. I, Takashi, really do what I say. His eyes were extremely firm, full of absolute security. He stretched out his hand and handed it to Yakumo. This sad little girl just wanted a family who truly loved her, that's all, and didn't have too many requirements. Yakumo was also a little surprised to hear this, and seemed to not believe his ears, but seeing Takashi's serious look, he said angrily, I'm very willful, and I have a bad temper. I'm very easy to break down. I will also let you be my painting model often. Most importantly, I'm also very dangerous. I can even kill you. Do you really want to? Even if I'm like this, you don't dislike me. Takashi said seriously word by word. If you want to. Yakumo was infected by his attitude and subconsciously stretched out his hand, but was directly sealed in the crystal-like cube. No matter how he knocked, he could not appear. At this time, the illusion evil spirit also appeared in front of Takashi. He couldn't just give up his master like this. He wanted to destroy everything here. Yakumo saw that this guy was about to kill the most important person to him now, and he knocked the obstacles in front of him frantically. This might be the most active moment Takashi had ever seen him. At this time, the voice of the system suddenly sounded. A supernatural life form that does not belong to this world has been detected. Do you want to recycle it? Gaokaiwa was overjoyed when he heard this voice. Even he was afraid that he could not be absolutely sure that he could defeat this monster because he did not belong to the scope of this world at all. Suddenly, a diamond-like thing appeared in Gaokaiwa's hand and was aimed at the evil spirit in the illusion. This guy seemed to have seen an extremely terrifying scene in his life and was directly sucked in. Then a sealing spell appeared on it and this guy was sealed in it. Then the sealing gem appeared in his backpack, which made him breathe a sigh of relief. Then, the entire illusion disappeared directly. The place where they were this time was in Bangbu. Yakumo almost fell to the ground, but was caught steadily by Gaokaiwa's strong arms. Yakumo looked at his hands in disbelief. Why did my ability disappear? This result made Gaokaiwa unexpected. After sealing the monster, he even sealed Yakumo's ability directly, but on second thought, this is also a good thing. Facing a person who cannot freely control his own abilities, this result should be the best. Yakumo looked at Gaokaiwa with tears in her eyes. Then after I lose this ability, will you still recognize me as your sister? Takashi didn't say anything, but just touched her head. What do you want to eat tonight? I'll make it for you. Not only Yakumo, but even Takashi felt a little warm. After being in this world for so long, he finally had relatives again. Chapter 54. Plans carried out in advance. Gaara is captured. In order to make the little girl happy, Takashi did not even let Orochimaru out and cooked a large table of dishes to celebrate. Fortunately, this mad scientist does not care about these appetites. After the meal, he personally sent the little girl back. Yuhi Kurenai felt a little relieved. The little girl finally had the life she wanted. After losing these abilities, he became more lively. Takashi took out the little bit of super soldier serum he had left, although it was only a very small bottle bottom, and secretly added it to the dishes to improve the physique of the little girl. After returning, he took the hot food to see what Orochimaru's results were, but found that this time it was a finished laser gun after improvement. Takashi named it Fire Kirin number 1. Looking at the buttstock and scope added on top, Takashi weighed it in his hand and felt that it was not heavy, probably only a few pounds. The main reason was that the metal that stored energy at the back was heavier. As for other places, you can mix and match metal and wood materials, which feels good. Then I looked at the scope and it was accurate. Orochimaru said casually. The range of the gun we made this time is relatively short, about 200 meters, so my scope has not been adjusted for long range. Takashi nodded. At this time, 200 meters is already very far. At least it can prevent the enemy's number from reaching you. Looking at this thing, Takashi asked curiously. Do you think this thing can determine the victory of the ninja battlefield? Who knew that this casual question would actually get a very serious answer from Orochimaru? He started thinking about this question halfway through his meal. I think it's okay. Although this thing is much less threatening to the Jonin. How many Jonin are there? Unless it's someone like Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha. Even if it's a Jonin, as long as there are more people attacking in numbers, he will still be beaten into a sieve by this fast laser. The most important thing is that the damage of this thing is basically irreversible. After being hit, even if the medical team comes, it can't improve the effect much. So once a real decisive battle is launched, it only needs the strong men of both sides to hold it back. Then for the middle and lower levels, it will be a one-sided massacre. In fact, he had already made up his mind about this answer, but he just wanted to see Orochimaru's point of view. The investment range of general ninjutsu and kunai shuriken is more than 50 meters at most, and less than 100 meters when it comes to death. But his laser gun can reach a range of 200 meters. This 200 meters does not mean that he can only hit 200 meters, but his effective killing range is 200 meters, and the final range will definitely be farther. This 200 meter distance is enough to kill someone. You should know that before your ninjutsu arrives, the other party can already snipe you crazily from a distance. This is already a crazy attack from a commanding height. The other party wants to break this formation. There is only one way, that is to use a human wave tactics, fight fiercely, and pay a huge price. Takashi looked at the gun, although he was quite satisfied, but he did not show a too gratified smile. He knew that this thing was just the beginning. On the battlefield, it is definitely not a certain weapon that can lead them to victory, but to be diversified. A suit that can be combined in all fields to exert the greatest power. So far, his Fire Kirin number 1 only lacks some extreme tests and environmental tests. As long as these two items are passed, it can basically be mass produced. At that time, you must rent a shop for mass production. It is too conspicuous here at home, and it will be easily exposed, but that will be a huge expense. You must find a way to earn enough W before that. However, it is hard to say whether Takashi's luck is good or bad. The next day, when he went to accept the mission, he suddenly saw many people rushing to the Hokage room. There were not many people accepting the mission, and all other things seemed bleak. Takashi was also called into the Hokage room. He didn't know what happened yet. Seeing that everyone looked a little solemn, he knew that there must be a big mission. And a big mission naturally means a lot of small money to be taken. Others are frowning, but he actually has a very strange smile on his face. Others think that this kid has taken too many missions and is a little crazy. When he came to the Hokage room, he found that the room was full of people with status in Konoha. Takashi was among them. Although his height was not inferior, his face looked a little immature. But he didn't care. He stood behind everyone, and at this time Might Guy said excitedly, "Gaara was kidnapped by Akatsuki. It's obvious that these guys are after Shukaku of the Sand. If they take him away, they will soon attack our Konoha. We must not encourage their arrogance. I'm willing to take action to stop them. This matter is too dangerous, and the students he organized are not strong enough, so he can't bring them this time." Although Kakashi didn't say anything, he was also on standby at any time. As long as the task was assigned, he didn't mind going to the Sand village. The third Hokage's eyes passed through the crowd and finally locked on Takashi. "Takashi, what do you think?" Only then did he react. Gaara was actually captured, and this is good. I mean, this matter is too sad and must be stopped. Although he actually turned the expression on his face into grief and anger, the happy expression before was obvious to everyone. This guy was so gloating. But now is obviously not the time to worry about this. Takashi is really very happy now, even to the point that he can't control his expression. This is definitely a super big deal. After saving Gaara, their village will definitely give the hero who rescued Gaara a generous reward. Konoha will also have one. If the wanted criminals of Akatsuki are killed, there will be another bonus. This is not a mission, it's simply a welfare. Both of his eyes are now emitting golden light, but he doesn't know who will catch Gaara this time. However, their purpose of catching Gaara is probably not going to change. It is still to extract the tailed beast in the body. However, since those students have not yet become talents, they can only let these teachers go out to deal with it first. Even Naruto and the others have gone to Maiboki Mountain for training. Other people of the same age, except for the college entrance examination, did not participate in this action. What Takashi didn't expect was that even Tsunade participated in the action this time. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 55 The Role of Evil Spirits. When Tsunade saw Takashi, she hugged his neck. The intimacy made others feel envious, except Kakashi and Might Guy. "Why, you don't seem happy to see me." Takashi's tone was slightly resentful. "First, return the 3 million I lent you last time." Tsunade played with her hair awkwardly. "This matter needs to be discussed. It's not my fault. It's definitely the problem with the casino machines. When I make a profit in the future, I will give you the principal and interest." Takashi's ears were almost calloused from hearing such words, and then he began to inquire about the whole story of this mission. As a medical technician, she should know most of the deployment of the mission. Whether it's the enemy or the situation, or our configuration. Tsunade briefly said something. This mission is a bit tricky. Don't think that these guys are the rubbish ninjas you met before. I can tell you responsibly that each of these people has an extremely exaggerated fighting power, and they can even fight against the cage level strongmen of the major villages. The one who attacked Gaara is a man named Deidara, the grandson of the Tsuchikage, who is said to have a very superb fighting talent. According to the information obtained by the Anbu, there is also a traitor named Scorpion of the Red Sand who cooperates with him. He is even suspected of assassinating the third Kazakage. They are all very dangerous people. Be careful. Hearing Tsunade say this, Takashi's heart is also a little warm. After all, in such a world, there are really not many people who can care about others. I know, but these two people should not be my opponents at the moment. Tsunade heard this, and flicked his head hard. Don't brag, be careful. Every time he saw these young juniors bragging, he would think of his lost brother, who was so confident and sunny before. Takashi dodged very cleverly. He was in the same team with Kakashi this time. The two of them were the fastest, and they could complement each other when working together. Takashi was also very polite and greeted him. Thank you for your guidance, Teacher Kakashi. Kakashi did not speak, but looked at Takashi seriously, as if he wanted to see something unnatural in his eyes. But he failed in the end. This kid hid the things in his eyes very deeply. He looked for a long time, but didn't find anything. In addition to the two of them, Asuma, my guy, Tsunade also cooperated. In addition, there were some other Anbu ninjas who cooperated. As for the others, there were also people from the Kazakage village. After a while, they arrived at the Kazakage village first. As soon as they arrived here, Kakashi directly asked them to take everyone to the place where Gaara had the accident, because his ninja dog had a tracking function. After several people went there, they were shocked by the scene in front of them. There was a huge pit in front of him. Everything around him was completely flattened. There was no house left. It was hard to imagine that Gaara could survive in such a situation. Kakashi frowned. What a powerful force. How did he do it? Temari said hurriedly. Someone who saw it said that Deidara rode on a white clay bird and dropped a white bomb similar to a tumbler on the ground. When it exploded, it became like this. Takashi thought about it. Gaara's current power has not reached perfection. It is fortunate that he can defend himself from being blown up. He has no extra power to defend himself. Most likely, it was this powerful impact that stunned him and took him away directly. Kakashi summoned his summoning beast, a Sharpei dog wearing clothes and a ninja head emblem. He sniffed carefully in the center and suddenly barked violently in one direction. Kakashi said quickly, "This is the direction, let's go." After hearing the order, the others did not dare to delay. After all, if they delayed for one more minute, Gaara would be in more danger. During their pursuit, Takashi's system backpack suddenly sent a prompt. The illusion evil spirit has been tamed and can be fused. Do you want to proceed? Takashi did not think much and directly chose to merge. He believed that the system would not harm him. After the fusion, the illusion evil spirit suddenly turned into a breath and entered his body. Then a beast roared in his brain. He frowned. Why did the system only let it merge, but did not tell him what function this guy had? Could it be that he was asked to develop it? But after all, it had been successfully tamed. After he roared arrogantly, Takashi just gave him a look and made him completely surrender. Then he asked, "If you can understand what I say, just nod your head." The evil spirit nodded quickly. "Then can you have the ability of Yakumo?" The evil spirit shook his head helplessly again. He didn't know what this evil spirit could do yet, so he let it stay in his body for now and study it later when he had a chance. Takashi and Kakashi chased all the way, and their speed had long fallen far behind the others, and the others also divided into 3 groups to outflank them, and after all, they were not sure whether they would separate in this general direction. Takashi and the other 2 followed the ninja dog, and when they came to a fork, they suddenly had a disagreement. The ninja dog chose the left, but for some reason, the evil spirit in Takashi's body pointed to the right, which made him a little embarrassed. Theoretically, Kakashi's ninja dog was very authoritative in the pursuit and rarely made mistakes. but in his heart, he believed in the evil spirit in his body very much. You know, this evil spirit is not at the same level as the summoned beast. This guy is completely beyond the scope, although his power has been weakened a lot by the system now. Just when Kakashi was about to leave, Takashi still expressed his doubts. "Teacher Kakashi, don't you think there is something suspicious on the right?" Kakashi said expressionlessly when he encountered someone questioning his ninja dog for the first time. "I don't think there's anything suspicious. Move quickly, or I'll be killed easily." At this time, the leading ninja dog sniffed around without giving face and barked at Kakashi a few times, which made him feel a little surprised. Could it be that this kid was really right? After hearing what the ninja dog said, Kakashi's eyes showed a hint of understanding, and he looked back at Takashi with a thoughtful look. He didn't understand how Takashi knew it. If he knew it now, why didn't he say anything when he was in the sand village before? Could it be that he didn't want others to know about the government's ability, but had to expose it at this critical moment? He is really a mysterious guy who is good at hiding his shortcomings. Chapter 56: The Murderous Intentions of the 100 Puppets. Takashi didn't know that his unintentional words had cast a mysterious shadow over him in Kakashi's heart, and he felt that he was more powerful. In the subsequent pursuit, when they encountered a fork in the road again, they would ask Takashi, but the ninja dog did not make any mistakes in the subsequent journey. Through this process, the college also discovered that the evil spirit in the body had a very strange ability. That ability is similar to perception, but it can only do very simple things, such as turning left or right, doing or not doing it. In difficult things, the evil spirit has no way to exert its ability. But even so, it is enough. In many cases, only a very simple judgment is needed to be very useful. When the two walked to the mouth of a canyon, a lot of bombs suddenly fell from the sky, but they were not Dedera's clay bombs, but earth bombs with burning fuses. Now basically no one would use such clumsy weapons. Kakashi also wondered why Akatsuki would still use this guy that has been eliminated for 800 years. When Takashi saw this thing, he was shocked. Isn't this a phase bomb? Only that guy would use such a funny weapon. It's just that the funnier people are, the more terrifying their strength becomes. After taking off the mask, under that mask is Uchiha Obito, who has infinite hatred for the whole world. It seems that he is very concerned about their first battle this time. After all, the first battle is also related to the morale. If they fail in the first battle, it will definitely greatly undermine their morale. And Kakashi also vaguely felt that this guy looked familiar, and when Afeni saw that his bomb did not hit, he turned around and ran without any hesitation. Takashi and Kakashi looked at each other. Chase. Takashi concluded that this guy did not dare to reveal his identity as Uchiha Obito now. If so, he would lose a lot of deterrence. The two chased all the way. This guy had no idea how many bombs he was carrying, and he kept raising ashes all the way. He was also shouting very embarrassingly when he was running for his life. Finally, he escaped to a hidden forest and couldn't help but shout quickly, "Senior Scorpion, if you don't come out, I'm going to be killed. Come out and save me." The only response they got was a fast metal tail with countless barbs sweeping towards them. Takashi and Kakashi dodged directly. This move was not difficult for them to dodge. When Afei saw Scorpion coming out, he dodged and left directly and made a face at them, but his eyes were quite cold. If Dedera saw it, he would definitely be very surprised. How could his idiot subordinate show such a determined look? Scorpion of the Red Sand saw that the people coming were actually the famous Konoha Kakashi and the Konoha Flash, who had recently become famous. Knowing the power of these two people, although he was not afraid, he did not dare to be arrogant. He got rid of his current turtle-like human body and turned into his original appearance, a human-shaped puppet, Scorpion of the Red Sand. Even though Kakashi had seen many storms, it was the first time he had seen such a ruthless person who could transform himself into a puppet. In addition to being surprised, he also admired this ruthlessness. Takashi pointed at the sharp-tipped steel rope on Scorpion's abdomen and whispered, "Teacher Kakashi, there is a lot of purple liquid on the steel rope on his abdomen. If nothing goes wrong, it should be coated with poison. Don't get scratched." Kakashi nodded. Then the two attacked from both sides. Kakashi used his unique Reikiri to quickly advance, and Takashi turned into a flash and went directly behind him. The red sand scorpion was obviously surprised. He didn't expect that this Konoha flash was even more exaggerated than the legend. The speed was so fast that he didn't even react. However, after countless battles, his subconscious reaction on the spot was also very fast. The scroll he held tightly in his hand suddenly burst into a violent white smoke. Takashi didn't hit it with his attack. This was the first time he missed in such a long time. However, the red sand scorpion was a little difficult to deal with. It was necessary to hit the heart to completely kill it. Otherwise, as long as there was a breath left, it would be almost immortal. At this moment, he suddenly thought of Orochimaru. A bad idea came to him. He wanted to tell Orochimaru about this matter and see how he would deal with it. If he also wanted to live forever, he would send him to the hidden sand village and turn him into a puppet. When he was a little distracted, the sky was suddenly surrounded by a black puppet army. Countless black shadows appeared. Everyone was wearing a red robe and their faces were very dull, but without exception, they held a deadly blade in their hands. This is the strongest power of Scorpion of the Red Sand. 100 people are in operation. It is said that he once used this number of people to massacre a city. Even though Kakashi has traveled all over the country and seen countless ninjutsu, he couldn't help but be shocked by the scene in front of him. First, the previous terrifying large-scale attack, and then this time's 100-person operation, all made Kakashi feel the power of this organization, and most importantly, this may be just the tip of the iceberg of this huge organization. And next to Scorpion, there is a puppet in a black robe, which seems out of place. Kakashi has seen a photo of this figure before. Although he has only seen it once, he will never make a mistake. Could that puppet be the assassinated third Kazekage? Suddenly, the third Kazekage puppet summoned a huge mass of iron sand, which turned into countless spikes and pierced them. Then countless puppets attacked them fiercely. Takashi dodged and cursed at the same time, which could be said to be perfect. The red sand scorpion switched back and forth among the crowd. For a moment, it was impossible to figure out which one was the real body. Even if he was extremely fast, it would take some effort to find the body of the red sand scorpion among the crowd. The most important thing was that this guy could leave his own body and regenerate in the bodies of other puppets. He hadn't thought much about it before, but now he was so angry that he wanted to curse. If he hadn't been killed by the plot, he wouldn't believe that Sakura and Chihaya could defeat such a powerful person. With such a powerful offensive, let alone Sakura, even if you let 10 groups come, it would probably not be enough for Scorpion to beat with one hand. As for Chihaya, if he said that he didn't let go during the battle, he would never believe it. On the other side, Kakashi was able to dodge the countless attacks thanks to his Sharingan. Sasori used these attacks against the two without any panic, and only saw this mysterious team operating according to his own ideas. However, Kakashi could also pay attention to Takashi's actions when he had time. After all, he was Might Guy's student. If he was injured or died, it would be difficult for him to explain when he returned. But after he looked at Takashi's speed, he basically stopped looking at him. His strong combat experience told him that he should be more careful, and that pervert didn't need him to worry at all. Chapter 57, The Death of Scorpion of the Red Sand and the Appearance of Afei. An hour later, most of the puppets in the sky had been completely smashed into pieces by Takashi. Since you can reassemble your puppets, after I break them apart, I will smash them directly to the point where you can't stick them together even with 502. This extremely brutal attack made even Scorpion shake his head. It was the first time he had seen such a reckless guy. However, even so, he had to admit that Takashi's fighting ability was strong. Not only was he fast, but he also had a high destructive rate. There were even a few times when he felt that his knife had already pierced into his body with poison, but he didn't feel that he had hit him at all. This made him very depressed. It was the first time he had encountered an enemy that he couldn't hit. The 100-man drill had almost left Takashi with no one left, and Kakashi on the side did not reveal the fact that he had the ability of Kamu. The consumption of puppets meant that he had fewer opportunities to switch, and now the status of both parties had been transformed from passive to active. Takashi sneered. Scorpion, have you ever played the game of whack-a-mole? What do you want to say? I mean, you are the mole. Then he rushed into the team again with a laser gun in hand and stabbed the puppet who had just spoken. Then, without waiting for his reaction, he subconsciously threw the laser gun at a puppet far away. It pierced the heart steadily, and at this moment, all the ghillie in the sky fell to the ground at the same time. Takashi and Kakashi walked towards the guy. There was doubt in the eyes of Scorpion of the Red Sand. He was not afraid of death, but he wanted to die with an understanding. How did you find me? In response, Takashi just said lightly, I don't know your puppetry. It is indeed very powerful to operate with 100 people. But as early as before the attack, I had marked all the chests of the puppets. When your heart moves, it will emit a light that only I can see. Just now, I finally arranged all the marks, and your movement was all within my prediction. Scorpion of the Red Sand looked up at the sky, gradually losing his spirit. He didn't feel pain, even when his heart was pierced. It turned out that he had already lost the moment he faced the two. Even Kakashi did not expect such a result. It turned out that Takashi had been planning since the moment the 100-man exercise appeared. Until the moment the game was completed just now, the death of Scorpion had been declared. After Takashi killed him, his first reaction was not to worry about Gaara's safety, but to hold the pierced heart with great excitement, and look at Kakashi with a burning face. Teacher Kakashi, how much is the head of Scorpion worth? Kakashi, this sentence made him not know how to continue answering, but he still said it with some embarrassment. I'm not sure, but it should be worth a lot of money, and that such a kid should also give you a lot of rewards. After all, you helped their village eliminate the rebellious ninja. Takashi made the puppet of Scorpion disappear like a magic trick, and Kakashi was so upset by this scene. How many things does this kid know that he even asked a very stupid question? You also have the Sharingan? And Takashi gave an answer that almost made him angry to death. That thing is useless. What do you need it for? Okay, you win. The two of them chased forward again. The speed of their handling can definitely be called very fast. It takes a certain amount of time to cast the 9 ceilings of the tailed beasts. But at the same time, Gaara is still young, and it is hard to say whether his vitality is that strong. So he dare not delay too much, and in front of him, Uchiha Obito witnessed the death of the Red Sand Scorpion and frowned. When did Konoha have such a guy? Why didn't there be any signs before? And he doesn't look like a child of a big family, or a blood limit. Could he really be a genius like my teacher? But he laughed at himself afterwards. What's a genius? He died for sealing the 9 tails, and I, a fool, still live to this day. Kakashi said that you are lucky, so I will let you live for a while. I will definitely take your life myself. He will never forget the scene when Kakashi killed Lin with Reikiri. He killed not only Lin, but Obito's entire world. Deidara didn't know the danger was approaching. The two artists still trusted each other because they believed in each other's strength. Even if they couldn't kill them, they would at least resist for a long time. But at this time, a fairy hurried over from behind and kept shouting on the ground. Senior, Deidara Senpai, the group of people from Konoha are catching up. You take me with you. They are too fast. I'm running out of strength. Deidara was shocked at first, and then sighed. If they caught up, it would naturally mean that Scorpion was defeated. He knew what it meant to be defeated in a life and death battle. He finally felt that he had met someone who could share the same language with art, but he left and disappeared quickly. He could only vent all his anger on a fairy. You idiot. Go and hold them back first, and then come to help you after my beloved generals have sent the helpers away. A fairy hurriedly shouted. No senior, I can't stop them at all. Look, they have already caught up with us. Help senior, help. Deidara couldn't stand the noise, and he really didn't want to see a fairy really die, so he had to take him with him. I knew you wouldn't give up on me senior. Stop talking nonsense, throw bombs quickly, and delay their speed. Got it. After receiving the order, a fairy got a lot of bombs from nowhere, and threw them along the way. However, this kind of thing can only delay them for a few seconds, and they will catch up again soon. Deidara didn't expect that these guys followed him so closely, but fortunately he was in the sky, about 100 meters away, and he didn't believe that the other side had a ninjutsu that could shoot him down. Takashi expected Deidara to have such an arrogant idea and didn't care about the bombs at all, just following closely from behind. And then the distance was getting closer and closer, and Deidara would occasionally throw some clay bombs and clay spiders below. He seemed to enjoy watching the people on the ground chasing his footsteps. This was a powerful performance. Let these humble people chase his footsteps. But he never thought that after getting closer, Takashi directly used the 8-foot mirror, and the light kept reflecting above the sky. Then the next second, he actually appeared in the sky. Deidara's face was like seeing a ghost. This is also possible. Chapter 58 The Power of Susanoo. Deidara didn't expect that there would be such a move that could quickly close the distance between the two sides, and the speed could be so fast. However, he was also very fast, and a mouth on his hand quickly chewed the explosive clay. But no matter how fast he was, how could he be faster than light? A ray of laser flashed into Takashi's hand and directly penetrated Deidara's shoulder. Blood spurted out, but Deidara was a real man, and he just snorted coldly when his shoulder was pierced. Then it didn't delay him from continuing to perform ninjutsu at all. The mouth in his hand chewed the clay, and then a huge white bird flew towards Takashi. He didn't believe that he could still use any quick evasive moves in midair, but he never thought that Takashi's laser could be fired continuously. After a few hits, the white clay was pierced into a sieve, and it exploded in the office before he got close. Damn, what kind of ninjutsu is this guy using? Why have I never heard of it before? Even Flying Thunder God has never heard of a long-range attack. A fairy on the giant bird has been observing Takashi's actions, trying to find some flaws in his actions so that he can defeat him at the first level when he encounters him in the future. But to his disappointment, after watching for a long time, he did not find any flaws. Once the bomb approaches his body, it will penetrate the body directly, similar to a fairy's skills. And the most amazing thing is that his skill actually has no buffer time, and after penetrating the body, it will flash behind you at a very fast speed and dodge in a very exaggerated posture. A fairy frowned tightly. This guy must be eliminated, otherwise, their attack on Konoha to capture the Ninetales will inevitably be greatly hindered. Then he pretended to throw a lot of explosive bombs, but even so, it was useless. Takashi's Navy 6 styles has almost merged with his body. After flying into the sky with the 8-foot mirror, he directly stepped on the air and chased him all the way. How could Deidara in front have seen such a situation? This was the first time he had seen a second person who could fly in the sky besides his grandfather. Every time Takashi stepped on the air, a sonic boom would sound behind him. After he suddenly opened his eyes. Could it be that this guy was not using ninjutsu, but taijutsu? It was just a very special method. He could chase in the air with a sonic boom at a very fast speed. Is this really possible? Even Kakashi was a little skeptical when he saw this scene. When he fought with Might Guy before, he knew that he could stay in the air for a while after opening the 8 gates, but this period of time was very limited and could not be very long. He just relied on his amazing jumping ability to increase the time he stayed in the air. But Takashi was completely different. He was already flying in the air, and from time to time he threw out a few lasers and finger guns. However, Deidara soon saw hope, because he clearly saw a crow flying towards them. He knew too well what the crow represented. Look at Takashi behind him. You will die soon. Even if I can't beat you, illusion is definitely a restraint for players like him who are good at taijutsu. The crow landed on the giant white bird, and then transformed into a human figure. It was Uchiha Itachi who came late. Takashi didn't expect that the arrest committee would have such a big show this time. It seems that they are really concerned about this first method. However, even if Uchiha Itachi came, he couldn't stop his determination to find Gaara. Those who delay him from making money will die. Uchiha Itachi started to make hand seals directly. Fire style. Great fireball technique. A huge fireball with a diameter of several meters rushed towards Takashi. Seeing such a huge attack, he was not in a hurry. He did a backflip in the air and used the storm kick. A blue light blade collided with it and exploded in the air. Uchiha Itachi was also stunned. No need to continue the hand seal. But this didn't affect him. He wanted to use the illusion directly. Takashi saw the Mangeki Sharingan pattern blooming in his eyes and quickly closed his eyes, not giving him the opportunity to cast the spell. But Uchiha Itachi was waiting for this moment. If you close your eyes, how can you avoid the attack? At once, the attacks of the three people all came towards Takashi. Kakashi below exclaimed, "Isn't it courting death to close your eyes on the battlefield?" Takashi, be careful. Iron block. Itachi was like a layer of iron she trapped all over his body. After countless shuriken bombs exploded on his body, they only blew up his clothes, revealing his very strong muscles. Under the sunlight, they even glowed with a layer of metallic light. But all this could not stop him from performing the moon step. He had a sneer on his face. Is that all you can do? The three of them took a breath of cold air. According to the information they had obtained, this kid should be a chunin. This guy who is invulnerable to swords and guns, water, and fire, and even bombs can't blow him up, is called a fucking chunin? Uchiha Itachi had no way to perform Amaterasu, but as soon as he performed Amaterasu, he immediately used the Asakami to dodge, which gave him a headache. There was no other way, so he could only use Susanoo again. The orange ribs were wrapped around him, and suddenly a huge hand stretched out, and a round flying disc burning with flames was thrown towards Takashi. This force was much greater than the Heyo Heyo fireball. He did not dare to use the iron block again for this attack. After all, it was just to concentrate the density of the body for a short time, not absolutely invincible. It would be funny if he was cut in half in case of emergency. He quickly turned his body into light energy particles, but this time, the distance between the two sides was widened again. They were anxious all the time, until they arrived at their target location. Deidara took Gaara, and flew directly in, intending to use the 9 ceilings of the Phantom Dragon to completely extract the tailed beast in his body, while the others resisted here. At the same time, Might Guy and others also arrived. The battle lineup can be said to be very luxurious. The second pillar was also there, but he had changed into a luxurious red cloud suit. They were also matched with the Shigeki Kisame and Konan. The two sides directly opened the formation. For this tailed beast, the people on both sides were determined to win, and it was absolutely impossible to let them give up. The ninjas from the Sand village also arrived late. Kankuro's eyes were almost furious. No matter how bad Gaara was, he was still their family and outsiders were not allowed to interfere. Takashi frowned at this time. None of these people on the other side were easy to deal with. If it was a one-on-one fight, it might be easier, but in this kind of group battle, even Might Guy could not exert the maximum power of his 8 gates, and might not be able to completely kill Shigeki Kisame. There was also Uchiha Itachi who had been saving his strength. A big battle was about to break out. Chapter 59, Mouth-to-Mouth Uchiha Itachi. Asuma lit a cigarette for himself. Judging from his expression, he should be very confident in his group, but Takashi himself was not very optimistic. Not to mention others, Uchiha Itachi alone was enough for them to fight for a while, and there was also a very tricky Konan. At this time, she had a blank expression on her body and 2 paper wings hanging on her body, looking down at everyone from a high position. Yuhi Kurenai wanted to cast an illusion, but she chose the wrong target and actually aimed directly at Uchiha Itachi. Takashi saw the opportunity and fired a laser, but it didn't hit, and once again scattered into a pile of crows, and Yuhi Kurenai was also saved. Using illusions with an ancestor who plays illusions is simply overestimating one's own ability. The power of the Mangekyou Sharingan is not something that everyone can resist. Asuma quickly came to Kurenai's side and helped her up with great concern. Although he didn't say much, the concern in his eyes is needless to say. Hong was about to thank Takashi, but she saw a hint of regret and amusement in his eyes, which was a way of thanking her for creating an opportunity for him and Hinata. She seemed to have thought of it, wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth, and stood up. Asuma was very angry. He could tolerate hitting him, but he absolutely could not hit the woman he loved. 2 blue chakra knives flashed in his hands, but he never expected that the Shigeki Kisame would suddenly fall from the sky and chop down heavily with the Gyanaji in his hand. Asuma's eyes became cautious when he saw this guy. The tailless beast, Shigeki Kisame. I didn't expect that someone in Konoha had heard of my name. It's an honor, but it's a pity that you are going to die here. The Gyanaji wrapped in bandages actually broke free from the restraints and opened its mouth wide to become a living creature. Takashi saw this and shouted to everyone. Everyone be careful, that big sword will absorb chakra and then feed it back to the master. Try to kill with one strike, don't fight a war of attrition. After hearing this, everyone's heart sank. How could there be such a terrifying weapon? No wonder it was called the Tailless Beast. It constantly replenished its chakra until the opponent was exhausted. It was really a scary person. What shocked them the most was that Uchiha directly released his Susanoo again, and a huge figure appeared, but this time it was just a huge skeleton, not fully armed. Kakashi took a breath of cold air. This is Uchiha Itachi, he is really amazing. Takashi looked at the expressions of the crowd and knew that his side was already at a disadvantage in this battle, so he said directly to the others, "Leave Uchiha Itachi to me, and you can block the others. As long as I find a gap, I can go in and rescue Gaara." This was the first time Asuma cooperated with Takashi, and it was obvious that he didn't trust him. How dare a mere Chunin speak so arrogantly here? Why do you say that? But unexpectedly, Kakashi and Might Guy said at the same time, "I believe Takahashi. I believe Takahashi." I didn't expect these two elite ninjas to speak for a Chunin, but since they have already said so, I certainly have no objection. A Fei came out of the void wearing a white mask. Now he is no longer a Fei, but Uchiha Obito, and he is directly fighting with everyone. The defense of Susanoo is difficult to break through, mainly because this thing is an energy body. After it is missing, it can be immediately filled with chakra. Moreover, this guy also has Amaterasu and Moon. He must always be on guard against these two skills. If he is touched by the black flame, he is not sure if he can get away. Since the second pillar left, he has also made a lot of progress. He can actually open the Sharingan to the level of 3 Magatama, looking for opportunities to interfere on the side, holding a Kusanagi sword in his hand, and waving it whirring, but this strength is still not enough in front of him. But the annoying thing is that his brother is a bit powerful. Brothers fight together in war, and fathers and sons fight together in battle. This is really true. As the fight went on, he had already made up his mind. It was indeed difficult to kill a powerful person like Uchiha Itachi. The most important thing was that it would be a pity to kill such a person. However, the second pillar in front of him was a bit annoying. This kid was mentally incomplete now. If he listened to something he shouldn't listen to, it would be easy for him to go astray again. Then don't blame me for doing it. Takahashi went straight to Sasuke's vitals. His posture was completely determined to kill him at any cost, which scared Uchiha Itachi. His speed was too fast. If he was determined to kill Sasuke, he might not be able to stop him. He had to yell at Sasuke, "You go first, leave here, go inside to see what the situation is. If it's okay, quickly let Deidara come out to join the battle." The life and death of other people had nothing to do with him, but his brother's life must be saved. After all, there were only a few people left in the entire family. Although Sasuke was a little unwilling, he had to leave angrily because of the gap in strength in front of him. The battle between Takahashi and Uchiha Itachi was very intense. The two of them had the greatest destructive power in the entire battle. Susanoo's moves were completely open and closed. They didn't expect this move to defeat Takahashi, who was very fast, but just hoped to hold him back until the Phantom Dragon 9 seals completely extracted the tailed beast. Takahashi saw that the person who was in the way finally left, and a strange smile appeared on his face. "Do you know what you are doing, Uchiha Itachi?" "Of course I know. I'm re-establishing the new rules of the ninja world." "Wrong, you are pushing Konoha step by step towards the abyss, and even pushing the entire ninja world into the abyss. You don't know what their plan is. You are just a tool among tools, to realize their vested interests." Uchiha Itachi naturally disdained these words. His firm will would not be defeated by these two simple sentences. But Takahashi pretended not to see it, and just continued to talk to himself. "Even the white mask is just a chess piece. Everything you have done is just a waste of effort." Then, he turned his gaze to Zetsu, who was watching the battle on the side, and whispered in a voice that only the two of them could hear, "The real winner is watching the battle beside you. All of you are just his chess pieces, including your self-righteous Nagato and Uchiha Madara." After hearing these two sentences, Uchiha Itachi was shocked. How did he know these two names? Could it be that his organization's plans have been fully understood? He suddenly recalled what Takahashi said before. If he knew everything, would he also know something that he didn't know? Could it be that the ultimate goal of the organization is to destroy the entire ninja world? Uchiha Itachi was shaken at this moment. Chapter 16 New store opening, forging plan. Takashi said coldly with a hint of nervousness on his face. I know a lot of secrets you don't know, including everything you did in Konoha. If there are people in the world who want to destroy Konoha, you definitely don't want to. If you want to know something, you can come to Konoha village to find me, but you have to let me go now. I don't want to fight you. Uchiha Itachi gritted his teeth. Why should I believe you? Give me a convincing reason. Takashi didn't show him any mercy. You can only believe me, otherwise everything you have done will be in vain. Konoha will be destroyed, and you will witness countless ruins. By then, it will be too late to regret. Uchiha Itachi thought about it, and didn't know whether he should believe it or not. He kept struggling with his thoughts in his brain, and finally chose to believe Takashi once. Since they can catch Gaara once, they can catch him a second time. At worst, they can catch him back after letting him go. He sold a flaw to Takashi, seized the opportunity to burst his body to the fastest speed, and rushed directly into the cave. Zetsu, who was standing by, saw this scene and thought it was not good. He quickly returned to the cave, and had to speed up the absorption process. Deidara was still guarding inside, but he had been injured before. Now facing Takashi, who was bursting out with all his strength, it was too powerless to stop him. Unless he used his strongest explosive attack to blow Gaara to death. But if that happened, even the tailed beast would disappear directly, which made him a little restrained for a while. Damn it. He cursed angrily. But Takashi didn't care so much. If you don't let me, I will kill you. In the end, the hope of survival was greater than the task of guarding. He avoided the place where Gaara was, but the performance of the 9 seals of the Phantom Dragon continued. The evil spirit in Takashi's body suddenly screamed and went straight out of his body, biting off all the chakra links that were still in operation, and Gaara's body fell gently into his arms. Takashi hurriedly touched his nose and found that he was still breathing. Although it was a little weak, he could clearly feel that he was still alive. This also made him feel relieved. The minimum condition for using his please don't die is that the opponent must be alive. If the opponent is dead, he can't use it. The chakra of the tailed beast was only extracted in part, and even the one tail was still in Gaara's body. Takashi rushed out at a very fast speed, but he was faced with the siege of all the people in the Akatsuki organization. The attack range completely covered all angles. If he dodged, Gaara would definitely be hit. He directly used the iron block to resist, but the people of Konoha did not disappoint him at this time. Might Guy had already opened his 7th gate, and Kakashi also released Kamu in the distance to offset some of the attacks. The remaining attacks were almost insignificant, and there was no big problem in resisting them. He rushed back to his team in front of everyone. Conan's beautiful eyes were about to spit fire. This was simply a great shame. She and Nagato had promised solemnly that they would complete the mission, but they encountered such a change. How could she let her go back? She wanted to rush up and snatch Gaara back, but Zetsu stuck his head out and said to everyone, "Since the mission has failed, leave quickly. You have already gathered a lot of one-tail chakra, which is of some use." Conan wanted to argue, but Zetsu said to himself, "This is what Nagato told me before he left. Do you want to disobey his order?" This sentence completely blocked her mouth. She was really unwilling to accept that such a mistake would happen to her. Temari and Kankuro hugged Gaara after seeing him, and they were relieved when they saw that he was still breathing. After seeing the Akatsuki people retreat, they also breathed a sigh of relief. If it was a fight to the death, this battle would be very tragic. From their previous battle, they knew that if both sides fought hard, no one would benefit. After returning to the sand village, Gaara was still unconscious and could not be efficient, so he had to use the please don't die again in front of everyone, which also caused the sand village ninjas to almost fight with Konoha. Fortunately, the misunderstanding was finally resolved. As for these things, I told the others that I didn't care. I only cared about how much money they could give. There was no way. I really needed some money now, and when I asked this question, Temari and Kankuro's faces were a little stiff. Takashi frowned. Damn, You guys don't want to default on your debt, right? If so, I won't care if Gaara is captured next time. After saying this, the others were all upset. In his eyes, could it be that the Sand Village was a place where enemies could come and go as they pleased? But after all, Takahashi saved their future Kazakage, so he couldn't say much. He could only say respectfully, "We will definitely pay Konoha the reward this time, and thank you all for coming to rescue us in your busy schedule." Takahashi liked to hear them say such things, and when he went back, he was also very happy. After returning to the Hokage room, the third Hokage knew the opponent's lineup and first looked at everyone present. Seeing that no one was absent or seriously injured, he felt relieved. The main credit this time was mainly on Takahashi, and he received the most reward this time, a full 50%. In other words, in this battle, he alone accounted for half of all the credit. After saying this, Tsunade's eyes turned red, but she had no choice, because Gaara, who was the most seriously injured this time, was also cured by Takahashi. She was just there to play soy sauce, and when she arrived, the battle was over. After getting the reward, he felt a little bit proud, and it felt good to have wealth in his hands. He found a more remote location in Konoha village. He had already taken a fancy to this place. If he wanted to continuously forge guns and ammunition, he had to find a place that was not very attractive, and it had to be wide. If he wanted to produce on a large scale, he needed an assembly line. He found a whole set of dilapidated residential houses in the corner of Konoha village. This place had been abandoned for a while, but no one had developed it. Takahashi found the original owner here, waved his hand, and bought it directly, and then the next thing was to transform it. At the beginning, he was quite interested in these things, but then it became a bit complicated and messy. In the end, it took more than a month to complete all the work and renovate the entire residential area, which was more than 100 meters long. He just looked at the renovated houses and brand new equipment, but no one was working inside. He had already seen a steady flow of funds flowing into their place. Chapter 61. Goal: go to the Iron Kingdom. It's just that he plans to openly treat it as a blacksmith shop for forging general tools, and then export it to various countries. But in fact, he wants to dig a huge hole under the entire row of houses, and then forge the guns and ammunition involved. However, these people must not be from Konoha village. If they are from Konoha village, these things will soon be leaked, and he already has an idea about this. Although his weapons are very powerful, if the other party doesn't like them, they are still useless. For example, those powerful villagers basically won't negotiate with him, so he can only look further away. The Iron Country, which has always been in a neutral state, is Takahashi's choice, because this place did not hold back, but followed the oldest Bushido. Although it also practices chakra, it cannot use large-scale ninjutsu, and its power is much weaker in comparison. And after they see this new weapon, they are likely to cooperate. Back home, Orochimaru was still researching and developing. He had basically finished modifying the guns these days. Not only did he add a silencer according to Takahashi's suggestion, he also conducted various extreme tests. Now their guns not only have a faster firing rate, but also have silencer measures. Looking at this new laser gun with a smoother line shape, more comfortable to hold and more powerful, his own Fire Kirin number 1 was finally completed. The power was 20% higher than before. Takahashi said excitedly, "Now we can mass produce it, but we don't need to produce too many. 1 or 200 will be enough. We will take these samples to trade with others." Orochimaru then lifted a huge black cloth beside him. "Are you talking about these?" Takahashi looked at the pile of Fire Kirin no ones that had been manufactured. There must be at least 300 or 400 of them. "Great, this will save us a lot of time. You pack up, and we'll leave for the Iron Country tomorrow." He had told Orochimaru about this before, and this was the choice they made after constant investigation and judgment, because this country is large enough and has strong financial strength to support their asking price. Not only that, they also need a lot of equipment. If they want to expand production, they must rely on them to open up sales channels. Once the war breaks out, other places will see that they have such a strong force and will definitely inquire about the news. At that time, their business orders will definitely continue. The next day, they got up early and left Konoha, and the 300 or 400 guns were directly put into their own space by Takashi. Every time he opened a backpack grid, it was a cubic meter of space. He already had 5 grids of space, and then he used some change to open 5 more, adding 5 points of physical strength, and there was still a lot of space to store these guns. Although Orochimaru was a little surprised after seeing it, he didn't ask much. Who doesn't have some secrets? Even if the partners know too much, it's not a good thing. After the two of them went out, they traveled overnight, and even past the borders of several small countries. The battles are always in places that most people cannot see. At the intersection of 2 or more countries, small-scale wars are happening all the time. Although this kind of thing does not affect them, such a scene is a bit sad in his eyes, but it means that his weapons will have a greater market. Only fighting can promote the progress of weapons. After a few days, they finally arrived at the Iron Country after a long journey. The customs and scenes here are very different from those in other countries. Here you can actually see samurai carrying swords on the streets, and there is a strong samurai atmosphere here. Even Orochimaru came here for the first time. However, after he came here, he was not very satisfied, and even said with some worry, "The biggest characteristic of a samurai is stubbornness. Can we really convince them with these weapons?" Takashi just responded lightly, "The truth is only within the range of the muzzle of the gun." He has absolute confidence in his weapon, and from the way Mifune handles things, it can be seen that he is an absolute peace-loving person. Although he has a stubbornness towards samurai in his bones, he is not a warmonger. Moreover, the strategy of the Iron Country is absolute neutrality, and not to participate in the fights between other countries. It is with this policy that they have been able to avoid several ninja wars, allowing their country, which is not very powerful, to recuperate and help more in the 4th Ninja War. Such a country cherishes the lives of its people and soldiers very much, even if it abides by its old-fashioned Bushido spirit. In the face of reality and life, spirit is not worth mentioning. I have come to the capital of the Iron Country. With a simple inquiry, I can find out where Mifune is. As a general of the Iron Country, he is very respected and loved. Although he looks very serious, he exudes a kind of iron-blooded tenderness in his bones. There are 2 guards at the door, and Takashi goes up very politely. The weapons dealer from Konoha village is here to visit Lord Mifune. The 2 guards looked at each other. They had never heard that Konoha village was rich in weapons. Besides, when it comes to producing weapons, which country can compare with the Iron Country? They said with some sarcasm. If you want to sell weapons, I think it's not necessary. No country can produce swords and shurikens that surpass our Iron Country. I think you two should go back and don't bother Lord Mifune. But Takashi insisted on seeing him. No, our weapons are completely different from the weapons you think of. In fact, the weapons you are talking about are just scraps of copper and iron in front of my weapons. This sentence was already full of gunpowder. Wuxi production is a means of making money that their Iron Country is very proud of, but it was actually belittled by an outsider. I think you are here to cause trouble. Don't you see where this is? This is Admiral Mifune's home. If you don't leave, don't blame us for taking action. Takashi said nothing, and took out the fire Kirin #1 in his hand, and aimed it at the weapons in the hands of the 2 men. Before they could react, Takashi pulled the trigger twice. Swish, swish. The knives in the hands of the 2 men had broken into 2 pieces. They didn't even have time to react. They were so scared that they quickly took a step back and said in fear, "What kind of magic did you use? Don't come here. This is Admiral Mifune's home." Takashi just spread his hands helplessly. "This is my new weapon. It's up to you whether you want to go in and report it." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 62. We warriors need no other weapons. Hearing the sound of fighting outside, several samurai holding 50 swords came out one after another. They looked at the 2 people in front of them very seriously, and then looked at the broken samurai sword in the hands of the gatekeeper. "What's going on?" Takashi didn't give the two guards a chance to explain and hurried forward and grabbed their hands. "Hello, I'm a weapons dealer in Konoha. This time, I came here specifically to pay a visit to Lord Mifune." The two who appeared from the door were obviously more prestigious. Although their faces were a little cold, they still said, "Wait a moment, I will go in and inform Lord Mifune." Not long after, the person who informed came out and said to Takashi with great respect, "Please come in, Lord Mifune wants to see you." And this was the time for Mifune to practice. Every day he would practice swordsmanship in the courtyard, and he had never given up for decades. When he heard that it was a weapons merchant who wanted to ask for a sword, he subconsciously refused. However, when he heard that it was someone from Konoha, he agreed to let him in. After all, they were in a neutral country, and the relationship with other major powers was delicate. It was not good to easily refuse before meeting the person. Mifune picked up the white towel hanging on the side and wiped the sweat off his body. It was approaching winter and the weather was very cold, but there was no trace of trembling on his body. This was the result of years of training. He came to the pavilion for entertaining guests and sat in the room with his eyes closed, waiting for Takashi and the others to come. He had already made plans. No matter how the two of them tried to sell their products with sweet words, he would directly refuse them. If a samurai used other weapons, he would not be called a samurai. The person who just reported had said that the new weapon in Takashi's hands was very strange, and it didn't even have a blade. Mifune couldn't think of how to fight with such a thing. It was probably a hidden weapon similar to Kunai Shuriken. They were very disdainful of such equipment. After Orochimaru and Takashi came in, they sat opposite each other politely. As the host, Mifune naturally had to be more polite. "You two must be tired after rushing here from Konoha. Do you want to take a rest and then we can talk again?" "You are welcome, Mr. Mifune. Since we are here to discuss business with you, we are naturally not afraid of hardship or fatigue. I have heard that the Iron Country is rich in various weapons. Can I see the precious sword you are using now?" Mifune was stunned. How could you sell weapons like this? But since the other party had already said it, it was not an excessive request, so he naturally agreed. He stood up and picked up a precious sword under the calligraphy and painting behind him and took it over. After Takashi caught it, he drew it out and saw a flash of sword light. Even though he had never used this kind of weapon, he could tell that it was a precious blade. He pulled out a hair and blew it gently, and the hair was directly cut into two pieces. Takashi couldn't help but sigh. It's a precious sword, it can cut through anything. Although there are some traces of fighting on it, there is no flaw in the sword's recognition. It seems that you care about this precious sword very much. Mifune nodded. "That's right. This sword has been with me for more than 10 years. I still have a lot of feelings for it." Takashi returned the sword to its original owner and then sighed helplessly. Mifune was puzzled by his look. "Why are you sighing?" "I just thought that this can guarantee that only you, Mifune, can control it. If it's someone else, I'm afraid they will just be a fool. As a weapons dealer, this is the greatest sorrow." Mifune was a little unhappy after hearing this. "You are just here to sell weapons. There is no need to praise one and criticize the other. If you have a better weapon, you might as well take it out and let me see it." Takashi said nothing and took out his Fire Kirin number 1. Mifune was also stunned when he saw this weapon with a very strange shape. Then he frowned and said, "Your Excellency's weapon is not a sword. No matter how useful it is, we will not accept it. Using weapons other than swords is really against our Bushido spirit. The spirit that has been passed down for hundreds and thousands of years will never waver here. Otherwise, I, Mifune, will be a sinner in history." He was right. The weapon he chose can definitely be regarded as the mainstream of the entire Iron Country because he is the general and the main fighter. He needs to take the lead on the battlefield, and he has absolute say. As for things like hidden weapons, he is disdainful. It can even be said that he looks down on anything that is not a samurai sword. However, seeing Mifune's efficient attitude, he just said lightly not to worry, take a look first, and it is not too late to decide after seeing it. "Mr. Mifune, can I show you the power of my new weapon in your yard?" Mifune just nodded lightly. Although he was not interested in it, no matter how powerful Takashi used, he would directly refuse and would not give him any chance. This is what he decided. Takashi was not polite and pointed his gun directly at a century-old pine tree in the yard. It was at least as thick as 3 people hugging it, so it was perfect for him to be used as a handle. He adjusted the power to the minimum. That's right, the current Fire Kirin can adjust the power release, which can be divided into 3 levels of low, medium and high. This is also a new function added later after the 2 discussed. It can be used in different environments to prevent different accidents. After aiming at the ancient pine tree, a hot laser shot out, leaving a very deep mark on the ancient pine tree, but it did not penetrate the ancient tree. The surrounding area was all burnt brown. Mifune frowned when he saw the power of this weapon. Although he was very unconvinced in his heart, he had to admit that the power of this weapon was indeed very strong, much stronger than he expected. If an ordinary ninja is scratched by this weapon, he will inevitably lose a large part of his combat power. It is not like Kunai Shuriken and other things. Only a large-scale hit can make it lose combat power. Moreover, for a slightly stronger ninja, ordinary Shuriken is almost useless. And this weapon is so fast that even it can't react. Not to mention Chunin, even if it is surrounded by several such weapons, it will probably die on the spot. Obviously, this weapon has shaken his heart, and it should also reduce the casualties on the battlefield, but as a samurai, he is persistent, and does not allow him to do so. I'm sorry, Lord Takashi. Although your weapon is very powerful, it may not be universal in our Iron country. However, your experiment this time really opened my eyes. I hope we can have the opportunity to cooperate in the future. However, Takashi said. Lord Mifune, what are you talking about? I haven't started yet. I was just debugging just now. Chapter 63 The Law of True Fragrance. Mifune was stunned. The powerful design just now was just to debug the weapon. He coughed awkwardly. I thought that the weapon you brought must be more powerful than this. Please continue. Then he pretended that nothing happened and took a sip of the hot tea in his hand. Takashi then adjusted the weapon directly to the highest level and aimed at the century-old pine again. Suddenly he said, Mr. Mifune, do you think this ancient pine is a bit annoying? It's okay. What's wrong? Then I will help you remove it. Before Mifune could refuse, Takashi fired several shots directly. The speed and power of each shot were much faster than before. It directly penetrated the century-old pine in front of him. Not only that, it also penetrated the pine tree and hit the wall behind it, leaving a dark mark on it. A moment later, a huge pine tree fell to the ground with a bang. If he hadn't stopped in time, I'm afraid that even the wall behind it would not be spared, and a big hole would be broken. Seeing such power, Sanchuan could no longer remain unmoved. The collapse of the ancient tree gave him no time to feel distressed. Instead, he immediately focused his attention on Fire Kirin number 1. He was organizing his words, thinking about how to regret, so that he would not look so shameful. As a descendant of Bushido, I, Sanchuan, would never abandon the samurai sword, but if I could add Fire Kirin number 1, I think the effect would be better. I'm making an improvement, and my ancestors will definitely forgive me. When the other guards in the room heard the sound, they immediately gathered around, thinking that there was an unpleasant fight between the two, and all of them were equipped with spears and short swords. As a result, Sanchuan saw these unpromising guys all surrounded him, and immediately scolded them. What are you looking at here? Put away your axe, you scared the guests. Others rarely saw their boss get so angry, so they all left obediently. Then they asked the servants to quickly prepare a sumptuous dinner. The 3 sat opposite each other again, but this time Sanchuan's face was much better than before, and he even looked a little amiable. I really didn't expect that Lord Takashi's weapons are so powerful. May I ask if you developed them yourself? Why have I never seen them before? Takashi nodded. This is just our first production, and there are still many immature parts. After it is improved in a day, it will definitely be more powerful. But since you don't like it, then we will leave first. I hope there will be opportunities for cooperation in the future. After saying that, he stood up without hesitation and was about to leave. This made Mifune very anxious. If he could hold this thing in his hands, he would be invincible in large-scale battles in the future. Lord Takashi, please stay. I want all your weapons. Not only that, I want as many as you have. Orochimaru and Takashi smiled at each other, revealing a sly smile. After sitting down again, the status of the two suddenly changed. From me begging you to buy weapons, to you begging me to sell weapons, they turned from passive to active. Mifune showed a rare smile on his face. I don't know how many weapons you have, and how many you brought this time. He answered truthfully. We only have more than 300 of them, and we brought them all this time, but this is just the beginning. We have already established a processing plant to forge these weapons, but we lack funds, and cannot carry out large-scale mass production. After we sell these things to you, if your excellency Mifune still wants to continue cooperation, I hope you can pay us a part of the deposit. When Mifune heard that it was about money, it was really not a big deal for them. Although they rarely use Kunai Shuriken, they are a big forging country, and the things they forge are sold to major ninja villages. Compared with other major countries, the Iron Country is still relatively wealthy. Just because they lack the blessing of numbers, even the soldiers' equipment is the most luxurious among the major countries. Everyone is equipped like an iron-blooded samurai. We can solve the problem of money. We want all of your weapons. Not only that, we, the Iron Country, hope to have the priority to choose how many weapons your excellency has in the future. Takashi pretended to be a little embarrassed. Well, this Mifune just said it very simply and rudely. I'll pay more. Okay, no problem. Why do these 3 words sound more touching than I love you? He likes to work with such wealthy people. For a peace-loving country, they will never save money on soldiers' equipment. Then Mifune personally picked up the Fire Kirin number 1 and began to test it. Although they are all samurai, it does not mean that they do not practice chakra. On the contrary, Mifune's chakra is not ordinary strong. Even compared with the 3rd generation of Hokage, it is not much different. Men, whether modern or ancient, have a very high love for powerful weapons, especially after getting this gun. The feel and comfort make him love it so much, and there are also very handsome patterns carved on it. From the dislike just now to the love now, Mifune's face is full of the words, it smells good. If possible, he really wants to hug this guy to sleep. At dinner time, Mifune actually took the initiative to toast them too. This is a treatment that only Hokage level figures can have. If other people see this, they will definitely be shocked. But only Mifune knew what this weapon meant to them. After 3 rounds of wine and 5 dishes, Takashi suddenly said, I actually want to ask you 2 things, Lord Mifune. We hope you can keep the sale of weapons to you a secret. Not only that, we also hope you can keep the news of our arrival a secret, because we forged weapons. Konoha is a secret, and it is not easy to tell you the details. I can only say that some people don't know the goods. This was rather vague, leaving it all to Mifune's own imagination. He subconsciously thought that those guys who use the number of people must think that these fire unicorns were too unskilled and insulted their nobility as ninjas. Thinking of this, he was a little scornful, and once again felt how avant-garde and broad his thinking was, because after such a wise decision, his country would have fewer casualties. This matter was a trivial matter to him. After he said a word, no one dared to leak the wind, and then continued to ask, you just mentioned 2 things, this is only one, what is the second thing? Takashi said very seriously, I want to establish our own chamber of commerce in the Iron Country, and develop it vigorously. Chapter 64, Establishing a Chamber of Commerce. Attributes saw. Mifune couldn't believe his ears. No matter how he thought about it, it was of great benefit to their Iron Country. He was absolutely 100% welcome to open a chamber of commerce in Iron Country. This kind of cross-era weapon could definitely raise their status among the major countries and bring them more benefits. No matter how he thought about it, it was 100 benefits without any harm. The most important thing was that they were here often, and they might be able to steal some of the secrets of the weapon manufacturing industry. When the time came, they could improve and remanufacture it themselves and save a lot of money. Happy Mifune toasted them again. Because they had to deal with some other things, they stayed in Iron Country for 3 days. During this time, an interesting thing happened. A chamber of commerce opened in the most remote area of the entire capital, and this chamber of commerce actually invited Mifune to be the person who cut the ribbon. This was a big news. As a general of Iron Country, he would never participate in activities that would affect his status, but this time he actually attended in person for a small and unknown chamber of commerce. This made others wonder how powerful the power behind this chamber of commerce was. Some people even wondered if the daimyo was behind it. The name of the Chamber of Commerce was also named Snake Chamber of Commerce, which touched Orochimaru very much, because the name was taken from his character. From then on, a mysterious Chamber of Commerce began to take root in the Iron Country, and Orochimaru also stayed in the Iron Country, letting him handle the affairs of the Iron Country there, and he returned to Konoha village with a group of craftsmen. These people were also selected by him and Orochimaru in these days. There was no way, because there were almost no decent blacksmiths in Konoha village, and they could not make things that were too exquisite. And these ordinary people without chakra came to the village, and it was not easy for the Anbu to pay attention to them, and even if they observed, it was useless. Takashi had already thought of a countermeasure. They would not assemble guns in the village and then transport them out. They would directly make parts, then transport the parts out, and then assemble and sell them in the iron pot. They were escorted confidentially throughout the process, so that even if the people of Konoha found out, there would be nothing. Without Takashi's guidance, they would pick up these messy things and put them together for a year, and they didn't know what they were doing. After returning to the village, he entered very smoothly. Even the others did not say much when they saw the few people behind Takashi. Then he went directly to register a Snake Chamber of Commerce. This place was the headquarters, and all other places were branches. Takashi is now a celebrity in the village. When he went to register, other people looked at Takashi strangely. They really couldn't understand why such a young and promising ninja would open a blacksmith shop. The explanation given by Takashi was very general. It was not shabby to make money. Then he took a group of people to the remote address of his blacksmith shop. On the surface, there were some ordinary forging sites, and some new tools after forging were hung on them. But the underground had been emptied by Takashi using the storage space. All the soil was put into the storage space in the ring. After several trips back and forth, a very complete storage room was formed below. All the excess products they made could be placed in the Konoha base, and then Takashi would transport them uniformly. It was obvious that Takashi's behavior could not be hidden from other people's eyes. The third Hokage directly asked Takashi to go there. He had known that this would happen, so he had made up a reason. After arriving in Hokage City, the third Hokage saw him coming and put down his work and asked softly, "I heard that you recently rented a shop in Konoha and are going to engage in the forging business. Are you short of money? And if I remember correctly, it seems that we don't have people who are proficient in forging in our wood industry." Takashi just shrugged his shoulders and smiled faintly for this question. "I've been receiving quite a lot of missions lately, and I have some spare money. I think our current shurikens are too useless, so I want to forge some new shurikens to see if they can be more practical in actual combat, and by the way, develop some new ones." The third Hokage nodded. After hearing this, the third Hokage nodded, and his impression of Takashi improved a bit. He really has a spirit of research. Strength does not come out of thin air, but requires constant research and training. Then he said with great satisfaction, "If you have any difficulties in the future, you can tell us directly. Even if you encounter some difficulties in this regard, you can also discuss and consult with other senior ninjas. They have also used shurikens for many years, and they have certain experience in this regard. If they can make their Bailey bigger, it will also be a help to them." And this reason was what Gyokuro had thought about for a long time before. There was basically no flaw at all, because he had already occupied the moral high ground. "I rented the shop, not for my own profit, but for the sake of the village. Any superior leader likes such people who devote themselves to the whole, and the third Hokage is no exception. What's more, all the things made by Gyokuro are spare parts, which look very strange, and have some similarities with shuriken. When the time comes, just take out some darts designed according to modern physics, and streamlined to deal with it. Basically, there won't be too many problems." When he came back, he didn't feel that there were other people watching him. The people in the Anbu should not have doubted him. He also went directly to his own forging shop and didn't find the breath of other people. There were basically no people coming and going. It can be said that it was very hidden. This is the effect that Kaguya wanted. The craftsmen from the Iron Country also worked very hard. The reason was that Kaguya gave too much. He gave these people a price that they could not refuse. After everything was settled, he returned to his home. After opening the space backpack, he was almost unable to open his eyes because of the golden smell of coins. However, he liked this feeling, this kind of rich smell full of wealth. Then he opened the 11th grid. It took 5,000 ninja coins to reach this grid. After opening it, the money in his backpack was a little less, but compared with that, it was still acceptable. However, when he opened the 11th grid, he found that its value had increased by 2 points, and his agility value increased by 2. Then he continued to open. He wanted to see how much money he could open. After all, he had already deducted the cost of materials. He opened until the 37th grid and finally stopped. Sure enough, when he opened the 31st grid, the attribute value became 4 points. Every time he increased his physical strength, he gained a lot of improvement. Now he felt that his pure strength and speed could be compared with Might Guy, who opened 2 doors. Chapter 65. Let me be the referee. Nanao's arrival. He was already very satisfied with his current strength, but he had a vague feeling that the strength of the body had an upper limit, and it would be difficult to continue to grow after reaching a certain level. Thinking of this, he was looking forward to when his frog would wake up again. After the strength increased, the body was a little tired. The power of the excessive one-time awakening was too strong, causing Takashi to fall asleep directly. When he woke up, it was already the afternoon of the next day. He woke up in a daze, but found that Konoha was suddenly lively. He looked out the window and saw many unfamiliar people. Konoha did not allow too many strangers to enter at the same time most of the time. He quickly flipped through the calendar and found that it had been more than half a year since the last ninja exam. He slapped his forehead and remembered that the exam was held twice a year. The last exam was ruined, and this time he might have to start over. But what he didn't expect was that he would start over so soon. He went down to inquire about it and found that this exam was actually handled by the Sand Village and Konoha together. I don't know how Gaara's body has recovered, but he actually took the joint exam again. Although it was also in the original plot, it was a few years later. At that time, Gaara was already the Kazakage who could stand alone. I didn't expect it to be ahead of schedule now. At this time, Gaara has appeared in the Hokage room. Now his identity is to represent the Sand Village, and the other identity is more noble, that is, the acting Kazakage. Although it is only temporary, no one else opposes it. He only needs to stabilize his position after a period of time, and he will be the real Kazakage. It's just that this time the battle is not as big as before. Not only that, but they are still discussing the details of the Chunin exam. Gaara said, since the last exam was in Konoha's Death Forest, why not take the exam in our village this time, and the final location will be the Sand Village for the final exam. The third generation Hokage nodded after listening, and didn't think there was any problem. Reciprocity can show them the strength of their village, and can also explain their current status. It can also be regarded as showing the world that he is the acting Kazakage, and there is no reason to refuse. At the same time, Might Guy has arrived at Takashi's house, and he hurried to greet this rare guest when he saw him. Teacher Gay, it's been a long time since we last met. How come you have time to come here today? The two of them had indeed not seen each other for a long time. If you count carefully, it has been several months. However, Gay is still the same, very enthusiastic. This time he came to inform Takashi of a piece of news. After hearing this, Takashi almost sat up from his stool. Let me be the referee. You are kidding, Teacher Gay. This is the Chunin exam. If I, a Chunin, am to be the teacher of the people who come to take the exam, I'm sure the others will not accept it. Unexpectedly, Might Guy shook his head very firmly. This is not just the third Hokage's intention, but also the intention of Kakashi, and if you are not qualified to be a referee, I'm afraid that there are few people in the industry who are qualified to be a referee. Although you are only a Chunin now, your strength is far beyond that of a Jonin. Moreover, this assessment will be conducted in the Sand Village, which is very far away. We don't know what will happen during the assessment. If you accompany us throughout the assessment, it will increase safety a lot. This is also our unanimous consideration." Takashi nodded. He suddenly understood why the third Hokage did this. Because in the last exam, Orochimaru participated in it, causing their village to suffer a lot of losses. In order to prevent other powerful people from participating in this exam and disrupting the exam, they need someone like Takashi who can calm the situation and participate in it. The previous battle against Uchiha Itachi, who opened Susanoo and Mangekyou Sharingan, had fully demonstrated his strength, and Kakashi and my guy were there to guarantee it. Although Takashi felt that this decision was a bit ridiculous, it did not harm him, so he agreed. Besides, he needed some time to forge here recently, so he was not in a hurry to go to the Iron Country. He nodded and agreed. "No problem, Mr. K. I will do my best to ensure that the ninjas in the village are safe." Mike K patted Takashi's shoulders heavily. "Hahaha, I knew you would agree. I believe in you. Don't let people down." In the next few days, many people came to Konoha village one after another because their written tests needed to be conducted in Konoha village, and the second and third tests would be conducted in Sand village. Since Takashi was also a referee of Konoha village, he needed to follow them all the way when they went to Sandstone village for their mission, but he could only stay in the dark and could not disturb the competition unless there were extremely special circumstances that would threaten the lives of the candidates. But Takashi felt a little uneasy, so he decided to stay at the registration office and let every participant pass his eyes to prevent outrageous players like Orochimaru from participating. As a result, he stayed there for a whole day and did not find any outrageous players. They were all roughly the same strength. When he thought he could relax, suddenly a young girl with dark skin and light green hair came over among the three people. Takashi felt that this person looked familiar, although he was sure that the two of them had definitely met for the first time. But this familiar feeling lingered in his heart, and the two guys next to the girl had very sharp eyes and a bloody smell that he was very familiar with. These two people were definitely not at the level of Chunin. At least they were elite ninjas who had killed many people, and they were also the more powerful ones among the Jonin. The girl didn't care and went forward to register directly. "I'm from Takigakure village. My name is Fu." Takashi finally knew why this person looked so familiar. Isn't this the Seven Tails Jinchuriki? The two people beside him should also be the Jonin sent by their village to protect them. No wonder they look so familiar. It seems that the third Hokage sent him here to have a party. A bunch of Jonin came to participate in this crappy Chunin competition. The fish frying never ends. You fry fish, I fry fish, and the Chunin fried to the Hokage level. The two guys guarding also noticed Takashi's gaze and looked over, but just nodded faintly. Takashi smiled back. Who knew that the little girl Fu was not afraid of strangers at all? She came up and held his hand. "It's our first meeting. I'm glad to meet you. We will be friends in the future. Are you here to take the exam this time?" Takashi nodded faintly. Fu wanted to say something, but was dragged away by the two guards. Chapter 66. The second Chunin exam begins. There were fewer people taking the exam this time than the last time. Perhaps it was because the distance between them was too short, which made them a little scared. After all, the attack of Orochimaru on the village was too shocking, which made others not believe in Konoha village. This competition was to restore their reputation, and Niji and others also participated in the competition. They were also students of Teacher K, and he also knew some inside information. When he saw Takashi, he smiled bitterly. They were classmates in the last exam, but this time Takashi was already the referee, and he had to follow the whole process. But then he became excited. After all, there was only one person like Takashi, and ordinary people like them were the majority. When the first exam started, I saw Takashi and greeted him very enthusiastically and whispered, "I heard that this exam is very difficult. If you don't know, I can help you." Gaokeo just smiled back and then sat on the examiner's seat in the surprised eyes of the three of them. And Fu said hurriedly, "Come down quickly, that's not the place for us examinees to sit. If you are caught, you will be expelled." But the two guards on the side looked at each other helplessly and then whispered in Fu's ear. The cute black-skinned girl opened her mouth in surprise and said in disbelief, You are not our examinee. Takahashi asked back. I never said I was. I wish you good luck. Then he sat down at his seat and watched them take the exam. He thought he would miss them a little, but he found that it had not been long since he last came to the classroom. When the exam started, it was still like before, with 8 immortals crossing the sea and showing their magical powers, but many people were still eliminated. Fu took advantage of the bugs and successfully passed the exam, and Niji and others were also very smooth. They had experienced these things once before, and this time they were even more familiar with them, without any pressure at all. The most critical thing is the second and third exams. The second exam is no longer to seize the heaven and earth scroll in the Death Forest, but to go to the demon desert in the Sand Village. Moreover, the dozens of people who arrived at the end were not qualified to take the exam. This undoubtedly made everyone speed up and also screen more elite ninjas. After briefly explaining the rules, everyone began to go to the Sand Village. There was no way to be pressed for time, and no one wanted to be eliminated in this competition. There were also several Jonins who went with them. Because there were too many candidates, each examiner could only take care of many people, and there was no way to watch one by one. Takahashi was an independent referee from the examiner. If he found a threatening situation, he could directly kill first and then report. This was also a position of amnesty this time. But Takahashi did not intend to follow others this time. He planned to follow this little girl all the way. Because except for the 2 Jonins here, all other places were Chunin, and the most important thing was that her identity as a human pillar was very sensitive, and those people from Akatsuki had already started in advance. Since Gaara is now well protected, it is actually very difficult for the Akatsuki people to catch him, but this does not mean that they will not reach out to the 7 tails that has been delivered to their door. As for the others, it is estimated that no one will target them. As for the failure to advance due to the same tricks used by other ninjas, it can only be said that they are not as skilled as others. Such things are not within his scope of judgment. Fu's team is directly ahead of all teams due to its high overall quality. Even Niji and his team can't catch up. After all, it is led by 2 Jonins, and the difference in strength is still obvious. Not only that, the place of Tokugakuwa seems to be rich in Jonin. Due to the special terrain, the overall scale of the village is not large, but even so, they can still be assigned a tailed beast. It can be seen that their overall strength is indeed not weak. Fu said excitedly. Do you think we will get the first place this time? The guards on both sides are not concerned about this. I think that guy named Takahashi seems to have discovered our identity. He looks at us with a wrong look. Another person also agreed with this statement. Only Miss Fu was very heartless and thought she could get the first place. She grew up in the love of the village chief and villagers. The treatment she received from celebrities was completely different, even opposite. Therefore, she was very cheerful and optimistic about everything. The 2 guards also doted on this young lady. They were in the first echelon and Niji followed closely behind them, chasing them very hard. Takahashi nodded when he saw them. As for the others, there was no eye-catching operation. They were all ordinary and were thrown far away. Half a day passed quickly. The people behind had already disappeared. Seeing this scene, Fu became more excited and sped up again. At this moment, 2 extremely evil auras suddenly appeared in front of them. The phantom evil spirits roared a few times towards the front, which further strengthened Takahashi's belief that there must be enemies in front. Then he joined their team. Fu didn't expect to see Takahashi here, and the 2 guards beside him frowned, not knowing what he wanted to do. We didn't break any rules. What can I do for you 2? Takahashi motioned them to keep their voices down. You didn't break any rules, but there are enemies ahead. They should be heading for the Jinchuriki. Hearing this, the 2 Jonin sneered. They had never heard of a ninjutsu that could sense the opponent's breath from such a distance, and they all thought Takahashi was bluffing. But suddenly a 3-bladed flying sickle swept towards them. Takahashi was quick to act, grabbed the collars of the 3 people, and pulled them back suddenly. The red sickle passed by them at a very small distance. This made them sweat coldly. If it weren't for Takahashi's help, their throats might have been cut by now. They all broke out in cold sweats. At this time, Niji also rushed up from the back. After seeing Takashi, he paused, and then his eyes began to become serious. Based on his understanding of Takashi, this guy would never appear here for no reason. Is there an enemy? Before Takashi could answer, two guys wearing red cloud uniforms appeared in front of him. One had a slicked back hair and carried a red sickle with a rope in his hand. The other wore a mask and exuded an extremely evil aura. Looking down at the few people, I told you, why do we have to wait until the exam is over before we do it? We do it here and get the result directly, and they can go and do the rest. The people who came were the immortal duo of Kakuzu and Hidden. Chapter 67, Battle against the undead duo. Kakuzu and Hidden had already regarded the people in front of them as their own prey. The two guards beside Fu recognized Kakuzu at a glance, because this guy used to be a jonin of Takigakure village, and then he became a traitor, because of some things. Facing their old predecessors, the two guards froze. They had heard of this guy's name. He was very strong, and his methods were cruel. The most important thing was that he was very difficult to kill. The two guards shouted at him, "You go first, and the two of us will be responsible for holding them back." Kakuzu snorted coldly. "We are really underestimated. What kind of guy dares to talk big? Otherwise, you commit suicide, which will be more comfortable. We only want the Seven Tails Jinchuriki." But Hidden on the side refused. He was a missionary and a murderer. He had to dismember them all with his sickle. Seeing this scene, the two guards knew that it would definitely not end well. Just as they were about to take action, they were stopped by Takashi. "You two are responsible for protecting the Jinchuriki. I will deal with these two guys." When Fidouin saw that it was Takashi who was speaking, he couldn't help laughing, but at the same time, Takashi's face turned cold. He flashed in front of the two of them at a very fast speed and used a storm kick, and the light blue impact slashed towards their waists. Fidouin hurriedly used his sickle to block it. He didn't expect Takashi's speed to be so fast, but the move he released was actually so easy to block with the Navy 6 styles. These moves will become more and more powerful as the user's physical ability continues to strengthen. If it was used before, it would definitely not be as powerful as it is now. After continuously strengthening the physical attributes, the power used was also earth-shattering. Fidouin almost lost his grip on the sickle in his hand because he was too hasty to block it. It was Kakuzu who pressed his shoulders, and the two of them worked together to barely block the impact. Now, the faces of the two of them became gloomy at the same time. They didn't expect to meet such a powerful person. The faces of the two guards and Fu were even more exciting. An idea appeared in their minds at the same time. Could it be that this guy is also a Jinchuriki? As for Niji, there was no other expression on his face, except a bitter smile. Unconsciously, the gap between the two had reached such a point. Kakuzu had not faced an enemy of this strength for a long time, so he brought out his boast that he had almost boasted about. "You are very strong. I haven't met an enemy as strong as you for a long time. The last time was when I fought the first Hokage." Takashi took over directly after saying this. "Throw a shuriken from 800 meters away, turn around and run. You also call it fighting the first Hokage? Can you stop bragging here? If I hadn't fought the first Hokage once, I would have believed it." After saying this, even Kakuzu was stunned. He never thought that he would meet another guy who had fought with the first Hokage, and the eyes of others looked at Takashi as if he were a monster. Then Kakuzu suddenly thought of something and said, "I heard that Konoha village has another golden flash. Why didn't he come this time?" Takashi didn't answer this time. He began to gather light in his hand, forming a cloud sword. He used the 8-foot mirror and came to Hidden's side in an instant. He slashed down with a fierce sword. Kakuzu was still stronger than Hidden, and he quickly pushed him away. He originally wanted to cut off Hidden's head, but he only cut off his arm. Although Hidden was in pain at this time, he was an immortal after all, so the pain didn't matter. He swung out his 3-bladed sickle and chopped it from an extremely tricky angle. Fu saw this and hurriedly wanted to use ninjutsu to help, but the opponent's speed was too fast, and it was too late to attack now. Unexpectedly, Takashi didn't even bother to dodge in the face of such an attack. Iron block. Suddenly, all the muscles in his body tightened in an instant, and the sickle pierced it without even breaking the skin. there was only a sound of metal collision, and the sickle was bounced out again. Hidden on the side yelled, "What kind of monster is this kid?" Kakuzu finally understood. At this speed, isn't this the Flash of Konoha? When they were on a mission before, Conan reminded them that it's best not to fight with this guy and just give up the mission, otherwise they might be exhausted to death. Kakuzu also reacted at this time, and received it immediately. Hidden, this kid is the Flash of Konoha, give up the mission and leave quickly, otherwise it will be difficult to leave later. They didn't expect that their luck would be so bad that they actually met this kid. Then they looked at the Seven Tails Jinchuriki again, and were very unwilling, but there were other Jonin and a large number of ninjas behind them, so they could only make plans later. Originally, they wanted to ambush and capture after everyone finished the exam, so that they would be more confident. But things are unpredictable, and they suddenly had a new mission, and time was very tight. If they arrested him after the exam, they might not have enough time, so they had to do it in advance. But they didn't expect to fail here directly. Fubalo was a little puzzled when she heard them calling Konoha Flash, and turned to look at the two guards. Have you heard of this name? Due to the special geographical location of Takigakure village, although it is easy for them to hide and easy to defend, it also makes them very isolated from the news. They don't know a lot of things. Fu is usually heartless and doesn't care about these things. But the two guards have heard of it. We only heard of the name Konoha Flash recently. The previous one who inherited this title was the fourth Hokage, but he died in order to seal the Nine Tails during the Nine Tails Rebellion. This new Konoha Flash has only recently emerged, but it is said that his strength is even better than the previous fourth Hokage. He is very powerful. There is even a rule in the small village that when you meet Konoha Flash during a mission, you can surrender immediately and he will not be held responsible. After hearing this, Fu's eyes lit up. A young girl in love hopes to meet a powerful and strong man to protect herself, especially an outstanding strong man like Takashi. But then he thought of his own strength and couldn't help feeling a little disappointed. He didn't know how this guy trained and why he was so powerful. After seeing the two people retreat decisively, Gaokyo didn't pursue them. He still understood the principle of not chasing after a desperate enemy. He was mainly afraid that if they were trying to lure the tiger away from the mountain, it would be terrible. He came to the front of everyone and said they shouldn't come again before the exam is over. I will follow you around, so just take the exam with peace of mind. Because they delayed this moment, the people behind them also caught up, and Gaokyo disappeared directly in a flash. Chapter 68 Miss Hinata is very angry. Ningsi was thinking deeply for a long time on the way. Seeing the strength that made him feel irresistible, he shook his head helplessly. However, Fu was a little absent-minded during the game, but even so, their strength was still far superior to most teams, and they easily won the second test. At night, the teams basically had a meal together, and then waited for the third test tomorrow. As long as they passed the test tomorrow, they would all be Chunin. Only after they truly became Chunin, they could barely be considered independent ninjas. However, there was only one exception, that was Takashi. He waited outside and observed every move. It was not that he did not believe in the combat effectiveness of the Sand Village, but the enemy's strength was too much higher than these guys. Hinata also participated in this exam, but in order not to add pressure to her and not want people to gossip about Hinata behind her, he held back for such a long time and did not even take the initiative to look at her. Because he knew that, although Hinata looked weak, she was still a very strong and even stubborn girl in her heart. If she knew that Takashi was helping her secretly, she would definitely be very angry. Although she was a little nervous, she still endured it. At this time, Fu, who was eating in the house, saw the figures of other Jonin, but Takashi was not there. She ate 2 bites and ran out immediately. The 2 Jonins who were accompanying her didn't care too much. After all, this was the territory of the Sand Village. But if they knew that Gaara was knocked unconscious and taken away by the Akatsuki people who broke into the village a few days ago, what would they think? As soon as she went out, she began to look for Takashi everywhere, but she couldn't find him after searching for a long time, so she returned to the house helplessly. Takashi was on the roof of the house, watching the little girl wandering around, and couldn't help but say, It's dangerous here. Let's go back to the house. Hearing this familiar voice, Fu immediately looked up. I knew you were outside. I couldn't see your shadow when I was eating just now. I'm not afraid of danger. You will protect me, right? Takashi always felt that this sentence was so familiar, as if he had heard it there before. Before he could think of it, Fu jumped up into steps and sat side by side with Takashi. Tonight was a full moon night. Under the moonlight, the two figures looked a little mysterious. As time passed, the atmosphere gradually became a little strange. Takashi glanced at the little girl, but found that she was staring at him straight. Her gaze was different from Yakumo's. Yakumo was simply lacking playmates, and was too lonely. She didn't have too many other emotions. Since becoming Takashi's sister, she was generally the same as before, but she seemed to be more willful. However, this is also the privilege of being a sister. Takashi also dotes on her. But Takashi always felt that Fu's gaze was a little special, and it contained some other meanings. He coughed dryly. Fu, what do you want to talk to me about? If you want to thank me, I saved you today, but you don't have to. As a referee, I have to rescue people in unexpected situations. This is my duty. You don't need to care too much. No, I know how to repay a favor, and I'm curious about how you practice to be so powerful. I want to be as powerful as you. How about I become your disciple? Gaio Kairo waved his hand quickly. Don't joke. I know my own level. I don't have the ability to teach others. Who knew Fu was so serious? If you don't have the qualifications to be a teacher, then others don't have them either. I think our village chief is not as powerful as you. You are the most powerful person I have ever seen, and you are still so young. Fu started to talk nonsense directly, but this kind of thing was useless to him. After hearing it, he was not moved at all, and even wanted to laugh. Just as he was about to refuse politely, he heard a colder voice behind him. Hey, it turns out that Takashi-kun can already be a teacher. I really admire you. Then I won't bother you two anymore. After hearing this voice, Takashi broke out in a cold sweat. This was Hinata's voice, and he heard an extreme anger in her voice, so angry that there was no emotional fluctuation. He cursed himself for being stupid and careless, and he didn't even notice Hinata's voice. He turned around and said immediately, Hinata, why are you here? Who knew Hinata would say it directly? I really shouldn't have come. After saying this, Takashi was even more ashamed. You misunderstood again. I didn't misunderstand anything. I just showed up at the wrong time. Takashi reacted immediately and grabbed Hinata's hand. Listen to my explanation. This is the Seven Tails Jinchuriki. I just saved her during the day, so the scene just now happened. It's really nothing. Don't misunderstand. After hearing this explanation, Hinata's face improved a little, and she asked faintly, really? Of course it's true, a million times true. Then he quickly winked at Nanabe, and the little girl was quite smart at this time, and left here quickly. Takashi also took the opportunity to hug Hinata, but he soon felt that something seemed wrong. Hinata has always been a relatively introverted girl, how could she say such a thing? And then he suddenly thought that Hinata's teacher has now been replaced by Tsunade. After her brother and boyfriend died, she basically started a journey of letting herself go. With him as a teacher, she might not know how to teach Hinata with all kinds of weird worldviews and life views. Damn it, I must talk to her when I have time, so as not to lead the well-behaved Hinata astray. Then she coaxed for a long time, and then Hinata smiled happily. He secretly wiped a cold sweat, saying that this little girl is getting harder and harder to fool under Tsunade's teaching. Before, it was obvious that 2 sentences could get rid of her, but now he had to wear out his lips to say that he was happy. The two chatted a lot more and talked about the exam. When talking about Kakuzu and Hiden's attack, Hinata couldn't help but clench her hands tightly. Seeing that Takashi really didn't have any scars, she was relieved. She said with some complaints, you are so powerful, so don't try these dangerous tricks. What if you make a mistake? The two chatted until midnight. The exam on the second day was held as scheduled. This exam seemed to make up for the failure of the last time. The number of people who passed almost reached the peak of previous years. And Fu, Hinata, Niji and others all successfully advanced. Then when Fu and the others left, Takashi and the others accompanied them for a long distance. After ensuring that there were no problems, they retreated. When they wanted to leave, Fu called Takashi and whispered in his ear, "See you again, if we are lucky." Konoha flash. Then she actually kissed Takashi on the cheek, and then acted as if nothing had happened, and jumped back to the village. Takashi touched his face, and felt a little lucky that he was not seen by Hinata. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 69. The Frog Awakens. The Ghost Pill is robbed. In the blink of an eye, half a month has passed since the exam. The ninjas who become Chunin will receive more missions, which are also more dangerous, but this will also become their accumulation in the road to becoming Jonin. On this day, something happened that made the college very excited. That is, the little frog at home finally woke up again after several months of sleep. She watched the pond thaw, and the little frog jumping around, and she was so excited that she almost cried. "Frog, if it weren't for my brother's real help, I would match you with a female frog, so that you can be a pair." Then he very skillfully put props, bento and things to improve luck on his frog. The little frog yawned, as if he had a very sweet sleep, and then waved to Takashi, and then jumped and disappeared from the sight. For the first time, he felt that the way the frog left was so handsome. It was worthy of his own awesome little frog. Even jumping was so magical. When the frog had just left, a small gray snake was lying on his window. Takashi frowned. When Orochimaru left, he told him that, if there was anything in the future, he would let his little snake bring the news to him. If it was good news, it would be a black snake, and if it was bad news, it would be a gray snake. Looking at the gray snake spitting out its letter, Takashi knew that something was wrong, and it was definitely not a trivial matter. The little snake spit out a bottle, which was well sealed. After spitting out the bottle, the little snake flipped down the window, drilled a hole in the ground and disappeared. The bottle was still covered with mucus, but Takashi didn't dislike it. He opened the letter and looked at the contents on it, and his brows gradually frowned. They knew that Pain's people would act in advance, but they didn't expect it to be so fast. They had already reached into Orochimaru's territory. He knew that Yukimaru had the power to control the three-tailed beast a long time ago, but the three-tailed beast had disappeared and needed to be condensed again before it could be controlled. The reason why he knew this was because his former subordinate Hanglian killed Yukimaru's mother. According to Orochimaru's original idea, Yukimaru had a certain degree of reliance on Hanglian, and planned to let Hanglian manipulate Yukimaru to control the three-tailed beast. However, an accident occurred, and Hanglian was killed directly by Uchiha Itachi. Now no one can control that guy, so Orochimaru didn't care too much about these things. After all, it would take some time for the three-tailed beast to appear. After that, Orochimaru directly ordered people to take Yukimaru to a sparsely populated place, just in case of emergency, but I don't know how the other party knew these things. It seems that Pain's information network is still quite powerful, but Takashi had some ominous premonitions in his heart. When Gaara was captured before, although the one tail was not extracted, it also consumed a lot of Shukaku's chakra, leaving Gaara's life hanging by a thread. They took Yukimaru directly this time, which must be to control the three-tailed beast, otherwise it would not cause such a big commotion. To be honest, if possible, he didn't want to face Kaguya, that terrifying guy. The 6 ninjutsu he used was difficult for him to crack now, and he didn't have a good way to defend himself. What's more, the things his frog brought back were all non-fixed products. What if he brought back some high-tech items for himself later? Unless he brought back Thanos's flying spaceship. So he still had to try his best to prevent Kaguya from resurrecting, especially now that the time period was getting closer and closer, and her resurrection time must be much shorter than before. If Naruto and Sasuke couldn't stand up, the entire ninja world would be basically unstoppable. Thinking of this, he shook his head. How could he boost others' ambitions and destroy his own prestige before the battle started? Even if Kaguya was powerful, she had to be resurrected. But when he saw the end, his brows suddenly relaxed, because Orochimaru was really flawless in his work. The village where he settled Yukimaru belonged to a village that had good relations with Konoha. Pain asked Akatsuki's people to capture Yukimaru, which had turned the village upside down and made everyone restless. After that, they had already asked them to send people to Konoha for help, which was probably not much slower than their own letters. Takashi also breathed a sigh of relief. Just now he was still thinking about how to ask Konoha for some help. Now it seems that having such an easy and labor-saving assistant is really a good thing. On the second day, just as Orochimaru said, the village sent a representative to Konoha village to ask for help, because their village also suffered a lot of losses, and even lost a lot of people. Although these things are nothing to Konoha, a place with a big family and a big business, they are very valuable to a poor village. The third generation Hokage frowned in the house, a little hesitant, who should be sent this time. Kakashi, Might Guy and others all went out to perform tasks. Although Takashi has not accepted any tasks these days, it is unknown whether he is in the village. And the third generation Hokage also has his own ideas. This guy's speed of becoming stronger is too outrageous, and he still has a lot of secrets. If possible, I don't want Takashi to be exposed to the multi-tailed beast in such a short time. Because no matter which village it is, the tailed beasts of their own are involved in a lot of secrets. Although they cannot solve them for the time being, they also don't want others to solve them. But after thinking for a long time, there is no way, because there is really no one available. However, Takashi had already learned the news, and had come to the Hokage room early to wait for the task. Pretending to have nothing to do, he strolled back and forth. Although the fake Hokage had no choice, he could only entrust this matter to Takashi temporarily, and let Tsunade go with him, and Hinata and Sakura would temporarily take over the medical room. They have been following the teacher for a long time. Although there is still a big gap in strength, some basic treatment methods are still no problem. Takashi saw the helpless expression of the third Hokage, and roughly knew what this guy was thinking, and his face was expressionless. The third Hokage said in a deep voice, "Don't act rashly in this mission, because it is a matter of great importance. The other side may send out a lot of powerful guys. You two just need to report back after getting the news, and I will send reinforcement. Don't confront the other side head on. Takashi is a banner for the young people in the village. If he dies, it will inevitably deal a heavy blow to Konoha's morale. In addition, Tsunade is the granddaughter of the first Hokage. This only child must not be allowed to die, at least not while he is alive." Chapter 70, Condensation of Three Tails. Takashi and Tsunade followed the person who reported the news to the looted village. The people of Akatsuki had been gone for a long time. They wanted to find traces, and decided to go to the village first to see if they could find some clues. As soon as Takashi entered the village, he was led by the village chief to a secret house. There were not many other neighbors around, but it was relatively secluded. Not only that, there were many traps around this place. It can be seen that there should be a lot of kunai and detonating talismans hanging. This made Takashi curious. Is there any ninja in this village who can use the number of people? When he got closer, he found that the surroundings were all destroyed, and the house was shaky, but it could barely hold on for a while. He heard the sound of footsteps and the cough of a young man inside. The sound was very familiar. This was a man with orange hair who walked out of the house. He looked very simple. Takashi was shocked when he saw it. Isn't this man Shigeru? No wonder the coughing sound coming from the room just now felt so familiar. The person who could make this madman stay here safely must be Kimimaro. As soon as he entered the room, he saw that Gomori was wrapped in bandages all over his body, and he coughed violently from time to time. He looked so miserable. After seeing Takashi, he immediately remembered it, but was stopped. Don't be too excited. You are injured now. You should take good care of your injuries. Tell me what happened? Who hurt you like this? He knew Kimimaro's strength very well. In addition, there was a JGO who could use the curse seal. It seemed that the other party should have brought a lot of talents this time. It was understandable. After all, they had failed last time. This time, they must get the three tails. What made the college feel incomprehensible was that the group of people never left anyone alive, but these two guys were able to survive. It seemed that there must be something fishy. As a result, Kimimaro felt a little sad when he said this. It turned out that when Orochimaru left, he had sent Kimimaro and the others here in order to cultivate feelings with Yaokimaru, a very unstable little guy, in advance, so as to replace Hanglian. Kimimaro had a harmless face, and the temperament of a vest man on his body was very compatible with Yaokimaru. The two of them soon became friends, and relied on each other. The three of them lived a relatively harmonious life, but until the arrival of Akatsuki, since Naoto was going to kill them all, if Kimimaro hadn't used his ultimate move to hide JGO's body under the ground at the end, they would probably not have been able to see Takahashi. Tsunade on the side frowned. She still remembered what happened to Orochimaru before, but she was a little unhappy when she saw that Takahashi and his men were so familiar with each other. He was an enemy, how could he be so close to the enemy's men? But now she knew that it was not the time to entangle these things, but to find the traces of Yaokimaru as soon as possible. If the other party really summoned the three-tailed beast first and defeated him and took him away, that would be even more troublesome. What they didn't expect was that JGO actually stood up, which made them feel very strange. Takahashi didn't remember what kind of detective expert this guy was who could find those traces of Tsushima. As a result, JGO showed his superb animal affinity. He was able to communicate with some animals in a very strange way, and then let some birds lead the way for him. What an irony, the craziest guy, but the one who could attract the most favor of animals. Takahashi asked the two of them to continue to rest and recuperate here. After all, Orochimaru's men were almost dead. If these two got into trouble again, it would be difficult to explain next time they saw them. He and Tsunade went directly in the direction indicated by the birds. According to what Kimimaro said before, they should have sent out a lot of guys this time, and the leader was Deidara. He was the most suitable for attacking on the lake. Not only could he dodge in time in the sky, but he could also attack continuously like a mobile turret. The two of them basically didn't say much when they went there, and the master couldn't help it and suddenly asked, "When did you become so close to Orochimaru's men?" Takahashi just responded with a look and said lightly, "Are you doubting me? Yes. Then I can't help it. I don't think it's necessary to explain this to you yet. If you have any questions, you can report it to the third Hokage." Tsunade was a little stunned for a moment. The two of them often joked before. In her impression, Takahashi was a relatively approachable guy. He never showed this side. At this time, it seemed that she didn't know him. Tsunade couldn't help this kind of attitude. She turned her head away and stopped looking at him in a bit of anger. Takahashi also acted indifferent. Even if he would report this matter to the third Hokage, he was not afraid. There were some things that should not be asked. They must know the degree. If you lie, it will be more troublesome. A lie often requires more lies to be perfected. The best way is to tell the truth, but you can't tell it completely. You can only tell others the part that can be said, but these things are no longer within the scope of Tsunade's knowledge. The two of them walked for a whole day without saying a word. They saw a huge lake in front of them, surrounded by a dense forest. It was very tight. Observing the surroundings, he suddenly said, "It's a little unusually quiet here. I'll go ahead and investigate. You wait here now." Tsunade didn't answer, but just snorted. Takahashi sighed inexplicably and said leisurely, "There are some things I can't say, but if you don't understand me, I can't do anything about it." Alas. After saying this, it seemed as if he had a lot of difficulties. His face was like a movie star. How sad he wanted me to be, and then he disappeared in a flash. Tsunade wanted to say something but hesitated. She kept thinking about the meaning of this sentence in her heart. Could it be that he really had a hard time, or did she misunderstand him? She was confused for a while. Then she was a little at a loss, so she simply stopped thinking about this problem and forgot everything she had seen before. Takahashi also understood her mentality. She always unconsciously regarded herself as his younger brother. Although what she did today was a bit despicable, it was better than being exposed. She could only apologize to her in her heart. Chapter 71 Three Forces. The surroundings were very quiet. The lake was surrounded by lush aquatic plants. In theory, such places would be excellent habitats for some birds. Not only that, there should be many animals coming here to drink water. But there was no movement at the moment. How weird it looked. Suddenly, he saw a flash of swords and shadows in the jungle not far away. He subconsciously looked over and saw a battle in the jungle, but that was not the direction they came from, but the opposite direction. What was going on? Could it be that there was another force involved in it besides them? He performed a moon step in the air again, but he reduced the power a lot, trying not to let others discover it. Then a ray of light flashed into the corner, silently observing which two parties were fighting. As soon as he arrived here, he saw the extremely dazzling Chian suit. Even if he didn't want to notice this mainstream clothing, it was too dazzling. There were quite a few people coming this time, including Deidara, Uchiha Itachi, Sasuke and Kisame, but they were facing the people from the Hidden Mist Village. There were dozens of them, and everyone had a cautious look on their faces, watching the Akatsuki people in full readiness. What Takashi didn't expect was that the leader was actually the confidant of Mizukage Terumi, Chijiro. This was the next generation of Mizukage, so it was clear how much the other party valued this matter. Takashi was lurking here without revealing any aura. Chijiro's eyes were cold, and he didn't have the restraint that he had next to the Mizukage. They also received clues about this matter, and they couldn't let this power go to this evil organization anyway. Before leaving, he assured the Mizukage that he would successfully complete the mission this time. Chijiro said coldly, "Please return the ghost pill to our Karigakya. The three tail is originally our village's power. If you want to go to war with our Karigakya, then you can't do that." Deidara couldn't help laughing when he heard this. They were about to become enemies with the entire human world, so how could they be afraid of the Karigakya? Not to mention a mere Chijiro. Even if the Mizukage fought in person, they wouldn't be afraid at all. Deidara threw out a giant white bat made of exploding clay. He didn't expect this guy to attack without even saying hello. The Karigakya ninjas behind him all use the Great Waterfall technique. A huge water curtain barrier blocked the exploding clay, creating a huge splash of water. Silica Gel also took out his own weapon, untied the bandage, and rushed towards the group of people. As a tailless beast, his power completely suppressed the enemy once he fell into the enemy camp. When Chijiro saw the knife, he went straight to meet it. Only he could fight with Kisame for a few moves. Although the others were not weak, they also had to compare with whom. They were still not good enough to fight this guy. Now Sasuke has been constantly tempered. Although he can't use Susanoo smoothly, his application of Sharingan is much stronger than before. When a bunch of people were fighting in a group, Tsunade, who was waiting in place, was a little impatient. At the same time, she was also afraid that Takashi would be in danger at this time. If that happened, she would regret it too late, and she appeared here to look for Takashi regardless of the past. But her appearance disrupted Takashi's plan. She originally wanted to wait until both sides were defeated, but Tsunade's appearance attracted Deidara's attention. This guy was above the sky, with a wider field of vision than everyone else, and his explosive clay was also left around. As long as someone passes by, an exploding spider will fall from the sky and blow them to pieces. Takashi also secretly thought that it was not good. He did not expect that this woman would be so disobedient. She was asked to wait in the same place, but she still found out. At this point, Takashi had no choice but to show up. After showing up, Uchiha Itachi was also shocked. He did not expect that they were so fast and found here so quickly. When Chijiro saw that it was Konoha's people coming, a touch of joy appeared on his face. Although it was not necessarily a 100% cooperative relationship, it was much closer than this evil organization anyway, so he quickly greeted them. "Looking at your speed, it should be Konoha's Golden Flash. I'm the common sense of the Hidden Mist Village, the confidant of the Mizukage. This time I came to stop the Akatsuki people from coming to do evil. They kidnapped the child who could control the three-tailed beast. Just find him." In fact, Chijiro's words were not complete, but only half of them, because the Mizukage told him very clearly at the time that if there was really no way to snatch it, then he would be killed on the spot. Such an uncertain factor must not be allowed to flow freely outside the control of the Hidden Mist Village. Ninjas are such people. If they can't get it, they might as well destroy it, which will make them feel more at ease. Although I feel a little sorry for this child, if it has come to this, there is nothing I can do. Although they were attacked from both sides, They were not particularly panicked, because in their eyes, the people of the Hidden Mist village were not worth mentioning at all, and the only one who could make them feel apprehensive was Takashi. As long as Uchiha Itachi was delayed first, and the others killed all the outsiders, they could concentrate their firepower on him. Even if they couldn't kill Takashi, the four of them combined together had the confidence to temporarily force Takashi back. Takashi was not stupid, and naturally knew what they were thinking. Fortunately, before they were assigned, they caught them off guard. The biggest battle they had against the three-tailed beast was Deidara. If they all went into the water, even Kisame couldn't confront the big guy like the tailed beast head on. Even if they could get it in the end, it would take a lot of effort. At that time, it was very likely that Takashi would take advantage of it. They would never dare to do such a risky thing. So Takashi immediately fixed his eyes on Deidara, and Yasakami flashed forward again. After suffering 2 losses, Deidara became smarter. He arranged his clay doll as soon as he saw Takashi. Takashi chopped it down, but this time he chopped Deidara's explosive clay. Deidara was behind him now, with a smile on his face. Last time, a laser beam penetrated his shoulder, which hurt him so much that he has not recovered even now. So he hated Takashi so much. The flash of Konoha. Today I will turn you into eternal darkness and let you see what the art of explosion is. But what he didn't expect was that Takashi actually condensed the Sharingan sword in his other hand and cut all the explosive clay into very small particles in an instant, and then used the iron block. A powerful bomb instantly became half a dumb bomb. Chapter 72. The Runaway Ghost Meru. Tsunade in the back didn't expect that there were so many people ambushing here in front. After arriving here, she was stunned. But when she saw Takashi attacking at a very fast speed, she was entangled by the clay. Just when she wanted to go up to rescue him, she didn't expect Takashi to break free by himself. The bomb was turned into very small particles, and even if the explosion hit his body, it would not have much power. Then the whole person took advantage of the impact and used the moon step on the spot, holding a spear and stabbing towards Deidara's head. Deidara didn't expect that the power of the explosion would become a sharp blade that threatened his life. Uchiha Itachi couldn't watch his companion die in front of him. He turned into a crow and quickly came to Takashi, trying to block the spear with the kunai in his hand. And Sasuke also flashed behind him and used the great fireball technique. The huge fireball swallowed them. Takashi turned around and swept the huge fireball with his spear, then did a backflip in the sky, giving a quick color to the steel hand below. The latter also understood and quickly left this chaotic place. Takashi turned over in the sky and used Yasakani no Magatama directly, and countless spots of light hit the bottom. Tsunade had already hidden, but the others didn't know what happened, even those from the Hidden Mist village. But the next moment they were faced with the overwhelming light shooting down from the sky. They quickly used ninjutsu, and Sasuke was protected by Uchiha Itachi at the first time. Chijiro's sword was very huge. After being filled with chakra, it protected his body and also protected some people behind him. The tragic Deidara was not so lucky. He was completely an old man who didn't love his uncle. Although he started to defend himself at the first time, it didn't work at all. His explosive clay was too soft, and there were many holes on his thighs. He spit out a mouthful of blood from the corner of his mouth, covered his chest, and looked at Uchiha Itachi, who was fine on the side, and he wanted to curse. This attack also tortured Chijiro and others. They looked at Takashi with hatred, but there was nothing they could do. After all, they were not allies yet. After seeing Takashi's strength, even though he was very unhappy, he could only greet him with a smile. He thought that the Konoha flash was so powerful. It seemed that this matter was not groundless. He would report to the Mizukage when he returned to see how to deal with this guy. We must not allow people who extremely destroy the balance of power in the village to exist. At this time, a Feni had appeared between the lake and released the power of the tailed beast when they were fighting. He held a special container in his hand. The ghost pill was already in his hand. Although he had fainted, a powerful force was radiating, but it would take some time to condense it. Uchiha Itachi was not doing well either. Takashi's attack directly knocked Deidara to the ground. Without the support and protection from the air, their battle became much more difficult. Kisame wanted to completely release his strength, but was stopped by Uchiha Itachi, who looked at Takashi coldly. The people on the Mizukage's side did not dare to act rashly, and the three forces continued to persist here. As the power continued to accumulate, waves gradually began to rise on the lake surface, and this finally attracted Takashi and the others' attention. Looking at the guy with a mask on his face and the kid in green clothes on his shoulders, they had a bad feeling in their hearts that these guys were making a feint to the east and attacking in the west. Sure enough, a moment later, an extremely huge monster appeared in front of everyone, and then it continued to enlarge. In the blink of an eye, it had drilled under the ground. Then circles of fog appeared around, surrounding the surroundings, and this was the mist hidden technique, but this ninjutsu was more than 100 times larger than that used by ordinary ninjas. The violent power of the three tails made the originally calm lake fall into turbulent waves for a while. Tsunade was quite shocked by this power. It was the first time for her to come into such close contact with a living tailed beast, and it was still in a violent state, which made her at a loss. The most important thing was that this guy could not get close in the water at all. Once he entered, he would be dizzy by the powerful impact. At this time, Afei was not going to reveal his identity completely. Seeing this, although Deidara was in great pain, he summoned an exploding clay bird and flew towards the center of the lake. Afei sat on it. Senior, this kid can use it to control the three-tail when he wakes up. By the way, why are there so many blood holes on your body? Deidara glared at him fiercely when he heard this. Ask what you should ask, don't ask what you shouldn't ask. Wake this kid up, otherwise it will be easy to cause trouble. The guy in Konoha is too powerful. I always feel uneasy with him. In fact, Afei felt the same way. Yukimaru was awakened and looked at everything strange in front of him. He couldn't help but tremble in his heart and remembered what happened before. These horrible people's horrible attacks destroyed the surrounding area of the village and also seriously injured Kimimaro. Without the figure that could make him feel at ease, he fell into panic. He began to struggle back and forth on the exploding clay bird. Where is Kimimaro? How is he? What did you do to him? Deidara was in a bad mood and said directly to Yukimaru's question. That kid has been killed by us. Don't have those unrealistic fantasies. Quickly control the three-tailed beast. Maybe we can spare your life. Otherwise, you will die. Yukimaru, who had already died once, how could he be afraid of these threats? What really made him collapse was that he had lost an important person again, and again, which made his spirit fall to the edge of collapse. With an angry roar, a powerful water column attacked them on the already turbulent lake. Afei cursed subconsciously. Stupid, don't continue to provoke Yukimaru. As soon as he said this, he felt something was wrong. He looked at Deidara on the side and quickly changed his words. Senior, if you do this, we might be wiped out. It's better not to provoke this kid. He didn't expect that Yukimaru would have such a strong resonance with Sanmuri, and he also regretted that he spoke too thoughtlessly just now. Now it's a bit troublesome to appease him. Chapter 73, Evil Spirit Resonance, Suppressing the Three-Tailed. Yukimaru was extremely hostile to these guys, so Takashi was happy to see this happen. However, as time went on, Yukimaru became more and more irritable, and the three-tailed beast gradually became agitated, and waves hit them one after another. They didn't expect that the tailed beast that had just condensed would have such a strong power. Tsunade didn't think it was a bad thing to see this situation, but she could delay time to return to Konoha to report and get more support. Chijiro and others also knew that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It was basically impossible for them to seize the three-tailed beast openly. They could only rely on these Akatsuki people, but they were also afraid that they were too powerful and would directly blow up the three. After all, there was no one to help them, and they couldn't control their consciousness. They were just a half-crazy beast. At this time, Deidara was already in the sky and the smell of gunpowder was extremely strong. As a blasting artist, when had he ever been insulted like this? Since he met Takashi, he had been unlucky one after another, and his injuries had never been complete. Is he going to be bullied by a beast this time? It formed a huge clay bomb similar to a tumbler, and fell vertically into the back, and then set off an extremely huge explosion. With a loud bang, the powerful impact actually temporarily separated the turbulent water surface. And this powerful bomb seemed to have caused considerable damage to the three-tailed beast at the bottom of the lake. It cried out in pain, as if it was in some pain. The three-tailed beast gradually emerged above the water surface. It was also the first time that Tsunade saw the so-called tailed beast at such a close distance. The strong visual impact shocked his nerves. However, Takashi had already been baptized by various super monster movies such as Godzilla, and he didn't think it was so amazing. After all, this size was still a small witch compared to monsters of Godzilla's level. Tsunade quietly looked at Takashi's profile, looking at it calmly, without showing any surprise at all. She thought that Takashi really had a strong heart, and he was not surprised in the face of such a terrifying beast. At this moment, Takashi thought that the big lizard that would release atomic breath would still be more handsome. Tsunade gritted her teeth and said, "You are fast. Go back to the village first and report to the Hokage to find some helpers. I will observe the situation here." Takashi did not look at her. "If I leave, do you have the confidence to deal with the abnormal situation here?" "I don't think so. These guys are already planning to start attacking the three-tailed beast. Let alone the people of the Hidden Mist village. The people of Akatsuki alone can definitely take down this tailed beast." Tsunade was a little unconvinced. "They are so passive now. They may not be able to take down the tailed beast today. You should return to the village as quickly as possible, and it should be in time." Geo looked at Afei. In non-critical times, he can be Afei, but in critical times, he will transform into a white mask. At that time, it will not be a joke. At this time, everyone who has seen the white mask will die, and there is no possibility of survival. If Tsunade is allowed to go back, the speed will not be enough, so no matter what, they can't go back to the village now. Facing this situation, she said angrily, "Is there no way? Do we have to watch them take the tailed beast away?" Takashi was unusually calm at this moment. "With me here, they won't be able to complete the mission." These words revealed his strong self-confidence, and the source of his self-confidence was his strength. There was no other way, except to wait and see. At this moment, in the environment in the space, the mine suddenly trembled, as if it felt the existence of other ferocious beasts, which put its existence in danger. It let out an extremely angry roar, which also made Takashi feel that he looked at the illusion evil spirit with some confusion. Although the two could not communicate verbally now, they could know what the other was thinking. Only then did he understand that it was because he felt the existence of the three-tailed beast, and the beast-like breath made it feel threatened the next time, so it let out an angry roar, and a trace of breath leaked out of Takashi's body. The three-tailed beast seemed to have felt the existence of the evil spirit at this moment. After floating up, it did not attack Deidara and others in the sky the first time, but attacked Tsunade and Takashi instead. As soon as the water curtain was lifted more than 10 meters high and rushed towards them, Takashi instantly understood that the two people were hostile at the moment. Even Afei and the others in the sky were confused by this scene, but they didn't care about that at the time. As long as they didn't attack them, it was a good thing. They used all means to attack the three-tailed beast, and Geokawa was also very angry after being attacked. "I didn't come to find you, but you took the initiative to provoke me, so you can't blame me." In an instant, dozens of laser beams were fired, instantly penetrating its heavy defense, and it screamed in pain. But this was just the beginning. For a while, the three parties gathered together to attack the three-tailed beast. Now their goals are relatively consistent. First, knock down this big guy, and then fight their own battles. In less than 2 hours, although the three-tailed beast is huge, it also makes them exhausted. The most important thing is that it has no carrier now, but only uses the chakra of other tailed beasts to forcibly condense, which is more uncomfortable. The strength of the attack and counterattack is obviously much smaller. As long as they persist a little longer, this legendary powerful beast will be in their pocket. Others also noticed this situation. It was unknown who took the initiative to attack Uchiha Itachi. Seeing this, the other party did not hold back and directly used Amaterasu. A black flame burned one of the guys from the Hidden Mist village to ashes. The scene became chaotic again for a while, and Takashi received a prompt from the system at this time, which was exactly the same as the prompt when he obtained the illusion evil spirit. The three-tailed beast is now seriously injured. Use the breath of the illusion evil spirit to suppress it, and it can be subdued. Takashi was instinctively shocked when he saw this sentence. He didn't expect that this so-called illusion evil spirit was so powerful that it could suppress the weak-tailed beast and even subdue it. But it also makes sense. Although the tailed beast is a very powerful thing, this illusion evil spirit itself does not belong to this world. Both sides are very powerful and mysterious. I said that other people can't feel this breath. Only the three-tailed beast can feel the strong sense of oppression brought by the illusion mind in person. It quickly rushed towards the three-tailed beast in the air, and its reaction was like a frightened puppy, very afraid of Takashi's appearance. This scene made Afeni feel a very bad premonition. Chapter 74, The Mystic Eyes of Death Perception. I'm a Gensha Yuriki. Afeni said subconsciously. It's not good, Senior Deidara. Konoha Flash wants to take away the fruits of our victory. Stop him quickly. In fact, at this time, he didn't know what Takashi wanted to do, but his bad premonition was gradually growing. And Takashi also found that the three-tailed beast was getting weaker and weaker. The best way was to let him hide at the bottom of the lake temporarily. Go down. After saying these two words lightly, he actually hid at the bottom of the lake. Afen's eyes almost popped out. He looked at the ghost pill next to him and grabbed his neck. Hurry up and call the three-tailed beast up, otherwise I will break your neck directly. But the ghost pill didn't say a word. He looked at Afeni in front of him very stubbornly, and there was a sneer on his face, obviously wanting to fight to the death. Seeing that this kid was almost useless, he threw him into the lake directly. Takashi caught the ghost pill in the air at a very fast speed, and then shouted to Tsunade on the shore. I caught it. Then he threw it out fiercely. After Tsunade caught the ghost pill, she immediately treated it. Although she did not suffer a big external injury, the mental shock was also very serious. She woke up in a daze, and suddenly thought of how she was rescued, and said with all her might, "Don't worry about me, go help him quickly, otherwise, the three-tail will be taken away." Then she fainted again. Tsunade didn't expect that this kid had a sense of right and wrong. Although she wanted to go to help quickly, she also had to be wary of the people in the Hidden Mist village. After all, there were still many differences between the two sides in the choice of the tailed beast. If they wanted to attack by surprise, she had to stop them in the first place. Not moving would also be an invisible deterrent to them. On the other hand, Takashi's place had been surrounded, especially Afeni. Now he was very unhappy. He had ruined his plan again and again. He must completely kill this guy who was in the way. Of course, what he was thinking about now was how to defeat these people, but there were two guys on the opposite side who could use illusions, which made him feel very tricky, and he would be caught if he was not careful. In a place that these guys didn't notice, a very cute little frog suddenly jumped up from under the lake, jumping in the air and directly returned to Takashi's shoulder. Then the system sent a prompt. Your awesome little frog has returned, bringing you the skill Mystic Eyes of Death Perception, as well as photos. Some images and skills appeared directly in the backpack. Takashi took a look at the photo, which turned out to be a picture of Ryuji Shiki holding a man chasing a frog and slashing it. However, seeing that the little frog was able to do it with ease and take photos, it shouldn't be a problem. Then he clicked and learned the Mystic Eyes of Death Perception at the fastest speed. Suddenly, his eyes began to blur in an instant, and when he opened them again, a very strange blue color appeared. A very ominous premonition was in Afeni's mind, and Uchiha Itachi no longer held back. If he used Amaterasu and was dodged, he would use Tsukuyomi, and Afeni's eyes at this moment also transformed into Sharingan. Standing behind everyone, he also used illusion. Takashi was immersed in the scene, in a dark space, tied to a cross full of steel wire and thorns, with a blazing fire below. At the same time, standing in front of him was Uchiha Itachi with a calm face. Sure enough, I guessed right. Although you are strong, you can't resist the power of illusion. This is your fatal weakness. If there is an afterlife, reflect on it first. But Takashi's face at the moment was also very calm, which made Uchiha Itachi frown. There are thousands of people who have been hit by illusions, but this is the first time he has seen such a calm expression. Aren't you afraid at all? Takashi's eyes at this moment turned into very beautiful heterochromatic pupils. In his eyes, the invincible illusion that should have been called the 10,000 microphone Sharingan was full of flaws in his eyes, all filled with red scars. Takashi cut the red scar on his arm and actually broke free from the cross. Then he chopped at the many traces in front of him, one by one, and the illusion was broken directly. This way of breaking the illusion was unheard of. He wanted to maintain his pupil power, but found that his power had been cut into pieces by an unknown means, and he could no longer maintain the power of Tsukuyomi. Blood flowed from his eyes, and he half knelt on the ground in some pain, while Kisame was still tied in front of the ninja of the Hidden Mist village. Deidara's pupils were also shocked when he saw this scene. You know, when he first met Uchiha Itachi, the other party used this illusion, but he had no way to deal with it. If Uchiha hadn't stayed behind, he might have become a pile of pieces now, and died in his own hands. Deidara actually felt a trace of despair in his heart at this moment. Is there no way to defeat this guy? Uchiha Itachi also had the same idea. As a genius of the Uchiha clan, in the same period, except for Uchiha Shizu, he didn't think anyone could compare with him. He was a little overwhelmed when facing Takashi. Arfei in the back was planning to take action himself. He was still somewhat confident in his own strength. Even if he couldn't kill it and hold it back, it shouldn't be a big problem. But the next scene made him never expect it. The three-tailed beast, which should have been lurking at the bottom of the lake, actually slowly floated up. He originally thought that it was Takashi's order, and it didn't work. This time he could finally capture the tailed beast. But he didn't expect that. After it floated up, it slowly shrank, and then suddenly pounced in the direction of Takashi. The latter didn't have any defense. The three-tailed beast actually turned into something like a stream of water, and sank into Takashi's body. In this situation, anyone who is not a fool knows that the matter is serious. He spent so much effort. Is he trying to make others do it? He absolutely can't stand this kind of thing. He wants the whole ninja world to pay the price. The space where Takashi is located began to collapse instantly and gradually twisted in the way of a whirlpool, which is the ultimate skill Kamu that Kakashi can also use. The illusionary evil spirits had a strong resistance to the space distorting ability of the gods. An evil shadow appeared behind Takashi, and only the shocked could see it. Except for Takashi, only Arfei could see the shadow of this guy. The monster frightened him, and he quickly retracted his power. After Takashi completely absorbed the three tails, he disappeared on the spot. Chapter 75, Fusion of the Three Tails, Initial Familiarity. Takashi disappeared, and the others were already in an uproar before they could react to what had just happened. Even though Sasuke was hiding on the shore, he couldn't help but open his mouth wide when he saw this scene. He had basically known about Uchiha Itachi's affairs with the tailed beasts. From all the performances just now, Takashi's performance was very strange, no matter how you looked at it. And there was also a very scary possibility, which was lingering in the minds of all of them. Although they dared not imagine it, it kept colliding with their brain circuits. Deidara was the first to say this sentence. Could it be that this kid has become a human helper? This is a fact that no one wants to think about. His own strength is so terrifying. If such a powerful person becomes a Jinkriki, the consequences are simply unimaginable to them. Although it is not the most terrifying nine-tails human helper, it is also a tailed beast after all. The terrifying power is not something that ordinary people can imagine. The tailed beast has powerful chakra, and even has the ability to transform into a tailed beast, plus the powerful destructive tailed beast ball. Arfei was about to vomit blood. What happened? Everything was under his control from the beginning, but why did it gradually deviate from the official track after Takashi appeared? And what happened just now? He didn't understand at all. Why did Sanmui allow Takashi to drive her without the control of Yaogimaru? He had never heard of anyone in Konoha being able to drive the tailed beast, and even the nine-tailed kid had never heard of being able to successfully control it. Where did this freak come from? Gnashing his teeth, he couldn't figure out where this guy came from. Uchiha Itachi knew some of the inside story. After seeing this situation, he knew that there was no way to continue the pursuit unless they had the ability to defeat Takashi and take him away successfully, but it was obviously impossible. Seeing that things were hopeless, continuing to entangle would only add to the trouble. Retreat. It's too useless to continue to entangle here. It's better to think about what to do next. There was no way. After hearing this, he could only leave obediently. Although he didn't want to admit it, it was all true. Tsunade also witnessed the whole process. As the granddaughter of the first generation, she was not very knowledgeable, but she knew many secrets that other ninjas did not know. However, she could not figure out how Takashi had done it. How could the tailed beasts surrender on their own initiative, unless the opponent was much stronger than the tailed beasts, such as Uchiha Madara who could summon the Nine Tails? Other than that, it would take years of communication. In terms of current strength, Takashi would also show the domineering strength similar to that of the Uchiha class, but it would also shock the tailed beasts. He quickly came to Tsunade's side, took the fainted Yukimaru, said hello to the group of people in the Hidden Mist village, and left quickly. Sasuke watched them leave, and looked at Takashi's back. His expression became extremely complicated, and Uchiha Itachi patted his shoulder, indicating that he should leave. On Takashi's side, she swept her eyes to Takashi, and finally couldn't help asking, "How did you successfully control the three-tailed beast?" Takashi answered very seriously, "Have you ever heard of the King's Aura?" Tsunade was also stunned when she saw his serious look. After thinking for a long time, she shook her head helplessly. "No, it's not possible. That it's a new bloodline limit?" Seeing this silly look, Takashi couldn't help but want to laugh, but since she had already said it, if she told me that she was bragging at this time, she would probably go crazy, so she had to make up for the lie. You can understand it this way, but there are some differences. This power can only work on the tailed beasts, and it has little effect on other situations. Even ordinary humans can't notice it. Even though Tsunade is knowledgeable, she could only nod helplessly when she heard this. After returning to the village, the third Hokage who heard about this almost choked to death when smoking. He looked at Takashi and Tsunade in front of him with a strange face. "Good guy, I asked you to go to investigate intelligence, and you directly became a human helper." From his perspective as the village chief, this should be a good thing, because a village has two main forces, which can be regarded as an improvement in combat power, and the status of the village will also be improved to a certain extent. Moreover, it was a person as powerful as Takashi, which could be said to be a tiger's will. However, there were some things that made him more worried, because if Takashi's strength increased like this, he would become more and more difficult to control. This kid was not only mature but also powerful, which made the third Hokage a little worried. However, these things could only be thought about. No village would be willing to kill a person with such strength. The third Hokage was having a headache now. Try to use the power of the tailed beast as freely as possible. If you can complete a certain degree of tail transformation, it would be great. Takashi did not say anything else, and went straight back to his home. This was his first time to become a Jinchuriki, and he had no experience. After returning, he immediately entered his system space. He wanted to see how powerful this guy was. And if he remembered correctly, the tailed beast was very intelligent and could communicate well, of course, provided that you had strong power. When Takashi came to the space, he found a very interesting scene. That is, the three-tailed beast actually confronted the illusion evil spirit. Although no one crossed the line to attack, the two people glared at each other in this wonderful space. They all have a very strong sense of territory. There can only be one master in this space. When Gyokyo appeared in the middle of them, this situation changed. Sanwoo suddenly became more cautious. He made a very muffled sound. "Who are you, and what is this monster opposite?" Gyokyo thought carefully. "Strictly speaking, I should be considered your Jinchuriki now, for a long time, until I die." Sanwoo snorted coldly when he heard this. "Do you think I haven't been a Jinchuriki of the tailed beast? What on earth is this place? I have never heard that this space can accommodate other monsters." Gyokyo's answer made him a little collapsed. "In theory, there is no doubt that I'm your master. If you want to fight me, I don't care, because no matter how many times you get hurt, it will only be you." I won't even limit your strength, but you will never be able to compete with me. This is a bit pretentious, but it is indeed true, because no matter how powerful Sanwei is, it cannot compete with the system space. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.